The story begins by explaining that the world was initially nothing more than a dark tempest until the goddess shed her light upon it, giving rise to a continent where 9 races were born: the Draconians, the Elves, the Soni, the Dwarves, the Demons, the Dark Elves, the Centaurs, the Beast Folk, and the Humans. And with that, the focus shifts to Light, a boy who excitedly bids farewell to his family, his parents, elves, and Yume, as the young man embarks on a journey to become a great adventurer, driven by the desire for all of them to live comfortably. Once he reaches the city, he gets slightly lost in the crowds, and right there, a member of the Beast Folk approaches him in an unfriendly manner, telling him that humans should keep their distance. Light simply apologizes and continues on his way, finally managing to find the place he was looking for: the Adventurers Guild. He goes through reception to register his name, and the receptionist informs him that he will start at rank F. He asks what kind of gift, or blessing, he possesses, and Light proudly replies that his is unlimited gacha. Seeing that she doesn't quite understand, Light decides to show her instead of explaining. He extends his hand, and a crystal-like object appears above it, which he simply presses to perform a gacha pull right there. Afterward, he takes the resulting card and says, "Release," to summon the item he obtained, but despite hoping to impress the receptionist, all he manages to conjure is a bent, completely useless fork. Seeing her distinctly unimpressed reaction in silence, Light gets slightly nervous and clarifies that this was just an example. He tries a couple more times, hoping to pull something better, but only obtains a rotten apple and a bit of moldy bread. Light tries to assure her that his luck isn't usually like this, but the receptionist insists that he must start at rank F, leaving him with no other option. So he asks if there are any jobs he can take immediately. After giving it some thought, the receptionist tells him that the easiest available quests are on the bulletin board. And seeing how lost he looks, she assumes Light has trouble reading, given the low literacy rate among humans. Keeping this in mind, she tells him that chores like gathering firewood, carrying earth, and cutting grass are always available, though the pay is quite low. Light has no problem with this, so he gladly takes all the jobs, spending the entire day working hard only to earn a few coins, which by the end of the day barely covers his lodging, meaning he now has to rely on pulling something edible with his gacha just to have a meal. As Light walks through the city, the same Beastfolk members from earlier spot him counting his coins, so they deliberately push him, then blame him for the collision. Light stumbles and falls into a mud puddle, but the Beastfolk members accuse him of dirtying their clothes and declare that he will have to pay for it. Before he can react, one of them grabs his coin pouch and says that will be enough to cover the laundry bill. Light panics and begs them to give it back, explaining that without it, he won't be able to pay for a place to stay the night. But the beastman simply punches him before he can finish, scoffing that those measly coins could barely rent a pigsty. So they are much better off in their hands, leaving Light with no option but to lay in the mud penniless and without a place to sleep. People around him ignore him, and some even tell him to go sleep in the dumpster with the rest of the garbage. But as he sits in the mud, a woman offers him a kind hand, asking if he is all right. Light thanks her and takes her hand without thinking, but realizing his hands are covered in mud, he panics and immediately pulls away, apologizing for dirtying her hands. The elven woman, Sasha, tells him not to worry, assuring him she won't hurt him, but Light still looks distressed, so she decides to kneel down in the mud and hug him completely, despite the unpleasant stares they receive from the surrounding crowd, thereby proving her point. Light remains frozen, trying to process the fact that this elf stained her knees just to embrace him. He wonders aloud if he's dreaming, but the woman assures him that he is awake and that this is real. She helps him up gently and introduces him to her group, the Tribal Concord. And one of them explains that their group's name represents the 9 races created by the goddess. He is a Beastfolk member named Garu, the woman from earlier is an elf named Sasha, and they are also joined by Drago the Draconian, Diablo the Demon, Obero the Oni, Nano the Dwarf, Sioni the Dark Elf, and Santor the Centaur. Garu explains that the only thing they are missing is a human, and then the Tribal Concord will be the perfect adventuring party. Sasha mentions that they formed this group in pursuit of a noble cause, aiming to end racial discrimination and create a fair world for everyone, which is why they need someone like him to join, and that they would be happy to welcome him into the Tribal Concord. Light's eyes fill with hope upon hearing this, and he thanks them with a big smile, accepting the invitation to join the group. Shortly after, the group decides to explore a dungeon filled with dangerous monsters. And Light would surely have died if not for them. Drago saves him from being killed by a giant serpent, and Sasha uses her bow to shoot down another monster attacking him from behind. After clearing the area, she approaches Light and scolds him for moving too far ahead. After all, they are in the largest and most difficult dungeon in the world, and he would die instantly if anything hit him here. Light apologizes again, but Sasha gently cups his face to check if he is hurt. The others start teasing her, mentioning how cute it is to see her fussing over Light again, which makes her visibly nervous, and she hurriedly clarifies that it's not about Light himself, but that she doesn't want the reputation of the tribal concord to be ruined by losing a member. Of course, nobody believes her, but Drago lets it slide and tries to reassure Light, telling him that they love the tea he makes for them, so he is already contributing enough. That comment undoubtedly cheers Light up, so they all decide to move on since they still have a long way to go. The group makes sure to protect Light inside the dungeon until Garou notes that there's only one entrance and one exit. Drago says that in that case, this place should be a good spot, so Light assumes they are going to take a break and decides to prepare tea before Drago can say anything else. Drago tells him it won't be necessary and informs him that he is being expelled from the group. Seeing his confusion, Garou directly tells him they are kicking him out of the group, but Light still doesn't understand what he did wrong. Sasha's attitude also changes completely. She looks at him with contempt, telling him he is so stupid that it infuriates her. Sione agrees, saying she can't tell if Light's ineptitude is due to a lack of neurons or if it's just typical of humans. The entire group thinks the same, and they no longer even try to hide their repulsion towards him. Light still can't believe the situation, considering how kind they were to him before. Drago clarifies that the kindness was all a facade because they wanted him in their group. Drago explains that it has to do with his gift, the unlimited gacha. Their superiors noticed the peculiarity of his gift and suspected he might be a master, which is why they invited him to the tribal concord to keep a close eye on him. Light tells them that doesn't make sense, since they themselves know that his unlimited gacha is a useless gift that serves no purpose. Garou confirms this, saying his gift is trash and his stats are those of a common human, so the higher-ups were wrong to suspect he was a master. They decided he couldn't possibly be the master, meaning he's nothing but a hindrance. Garou quips that it would have been better if the bosses had made this decision earlier, as it was obvious from the start. Sasha mentions she's greatly relieved because, while marrying a master would have secured them powerful bloodlines, the mere thought of having to marry an inferior makes her shudder. Garou tells her it was quite amusing watching her behave so suck-up-ish around him just to keep that possibility alive, but Light still doesn't understand what they are talking about. Drago warns them that they have revealed too much, but Garou replies that it doesn't matter because Light won't be talking for much longer. Drago urges him to finish it before other adventurers show up. It is then that Light finally grasps the reality. They explain that they received specific orders to eliminate any potential trouble at the root and not leave him alive. Garou swiftly uses his claws to slash Light across the face, and Light tries to process the sight of blood on his hands. At that moment, his expression turns to horror as he realizes they all want him dead. He immediately begins running for his life in a panic, but Garou laughs and tells him to keep running because he'll only end up minced by some monster in the abyss. Sasha clarifies that that will only happen if he manages to escape, which is highly unlikely in this case. Before he can get away, she uses her bow and shoots an arrow straight into his leg, sending him crashing to the ground. Light screams in pain, and Garou relishes the sound, saying it's his favorite thing about hunting humans. The others agree, so Garou lunges toward Light to attack him again and make him cry even harder. He kicks Light several times, but Drago stops him, saying that's enough. Of course, Garou is not happy about this, but Sasha reminds him that they already agreed the cover story is that he supposedly died in a surprise monster attack, so he should stop giving him injuries that contradict that. With no other choice, Garou decides to give him a quick death. But Light keeps fighting for his life, desperately trying to escape. He cries and tells them he doesn't want to die as he weakly crawls. Light exclaims that he wants to live, and when he places his hand on the ground, a magic circle suddenly appears. Drago assumes it's a teleportation trap, so he tells Garou not to let him escape. Garou leaps to finish him off with his claws, but Light vanishes completely before he can touch him. Now in the depths of the abyss, Light feels relieved to still be alive. He realizes he activated a teleportation trap that sent him to another part of the dungeon. Although that changes nothing because he's still doomed the moment he encounters one of the insane monsters that inhabit this deep abyss. The only thing he can think about is how much he misses his family, wondering why all this is happening to him. The tribal Concord treated him so well and showed him such kindness that he genuinely appreciated, respected, and believed in them. He was so happy, and yet it had all been a lie, as they had tricked him into joining the dungeon expedition, and then tried to kill him. They treated him like trash, mocking him. And he still doesn't even understand what they meant by the master, but despite everything, Light is now resolute. He is going to kill them one by one. He cannot die in this dungeon until he makes them pay and suffer. Just as he declares this, a giant level 1000 monster rises from the darkness behind him. Light doesn't know how that is even possible, as it's the kind of monster people only hear about in folktales. He then realizes he was teleported to the absolute deepest part of the abyss. The enormous monster slowly approaches, and Light can do nothing but stare in panic, yet he knows he cannot die yet. Still, he has no way to fight it because all he possesses is his gift, so wishing to see his family again, he tries again and again to pull something he can use to survive. Suddenly, his desire to live manifests, and several magic circles appear around the crystals of his gift. The monster immediately lunges at him, but the voice of a woman echoes through the area, declaring she has no mercy for anyone who threatens her master. With her mere appearance, the monster is torn to shreds, instantly crumbling at his feet. Light watches in shock as she cleanses the spot with a single sweep of her hand and gracefully approaches him to kneel. The woman doesn't hesitate to heal his wounds and apologizes for her actions, saying she couldn't bear to see his composed face and flawless skin marred by such scratches. Light notices that the wound on his leg also vanished and that all the pain is gone. The woman refers to him as Master and asks if he would grant her the honor of hearing him pronounce her name with that beautiful voice. Light nervously introduces himself, and the woman repeats his name several times, clearly delighted with how it sounds. She mentions that according to the maid's code of honor, her duty is to her master and she will live in his service even unto death. Having said this, the woman declares that she hereby swears her absolute loyalty to him. Light doesn't know what to say to this but decides to ask who she is first. In that instant, the woman reveals her level is 9,999 and that she is known as May, the ever-seeking maid. She is a super ultra rare card that came from his unlimited gacha. Light tries to process the information, but May decides to make a vow right there, telling him she will remain bound to him even beyond the grave. He tries to tell her that's impossible since his unlimited gacha is essentially useless, so someone as incredible as her couldn't possibly have come out of it. May simply ignores that and asks him to call her by her name instead of Miss. Light reluctantly agrees, but this clearly makes her happy, and she asks him permission for another humble request. May tells him she wants his authorization to use her evaluation skill to review the details of his unlimited gacha. Light asks if evaluation is actually her gift, but May clarifies that it is merely one of her innate abilities, to be precise. She tells him it is inconceivable that his gift is useless, so she wants to evaluate it for herself. Light decides to agree, so May uses evaluation to see the details of his gift and is left completely speechless. She states that his abilities are hidden under a heavy layer of concealment, making it impossible for anyone not at her level to see the true details. Knowing this, May clarifies that his unlimited gacha is far from useless. His gift, unlimited gacha, can be pulled infinite times, and the probability and rarity of the cards it produces vary based on the surrounding mana density. The rarities, starting from the highest, are Extra Super Ultra Rare, SS Rare, S Rare, Rare, Normal, and Error. Light finds it hard to understand all this, so May explains that mana is something that flows throughout the world. However, its density is lower on the surface, meaning the appearance of a super ultra rare card like her is almost nil. But mana abounds in the deep parts of the dungeon, which means he has a much better chance of pulling a rare card down here. May tells him that his bravery is admirable for having ventured alone to the bottom of the dungeon just to maximize his unlimited gacha, and even more so for pulling her card. That said, facing any monster could be deadly given his current stats. Still, May assures him that he has nothing to fear because she will be with him at all times. From now on, Light suddenly interrupts her to say that wasn't the case he would never have dared to venture into the abyss on his own. He explains that he was with a group, but they ended up betraying him. They cut him, shot him with arrows, and he was nearly killed by his own friends. Light breaks down as he speaks, exclaiming that they mocked his gift and called him trash. All he wanted was to support his family, so he doesn't understand how they could treat him like that just for being human. The pain was unbearable. It hurt so much, and all for the sake of their grand speech about ending discrimination and creating a fair world. Light falls to his knees, weeping in frustration, saying he won't rest until they pay for what they did. May suddenly embraces him, wrapping her arms around him in a comforting gesture. Light instantly calms down, and she tells him that a maid like her cannot possibly comprehend the depth of suffering he has endured, yet he must be sure that with her power at his disposal, bringing divine retribution upon his enemies is a simple matter. He only needs to give the order. By her maid's honor, she will pursue those unfaithful deceivers with maximum acceleration and present their heads on pikes before him. Seeing her dark and threatening expression, Light pulls away and tells her she cannot do that. After all, he trusted them and was deceived, nearly dying after being beaten and sent to this hellhole, but that only happened because he was weak, so the only thing he has to do is get stronger. It might be impossible for a human like him, but he wants to take revenge with his own hands and make them suffer. May kneels before him, telling him his wish is hers, and she will therefore help him obtain his vengeance, as she believes in his potential above all else. Light thanks her for her loyalty, and with that, he pulls his unlimited gacha again to establish a base camp, his path to vengeance, and thus the black depths were bathed in a brilliant light, becoming the first page of his great story of revenge, and thus ends Chapter 1. 3 years later, in the deepest part of the abyss, Light walks through the halls of a vast castle, with May diligently by his side as all the surrounding maids bow before him. However, it isn't long before they begin flattering him incessantly. And naturally, this does not amuse May, who immediately requests Light's permission to silence the chattering maidservants, but Light tries to tell her it's no big deal since they are simply enchanted by him and aren't harming anyone. Light then steps out to walk the streets of his territory, where everyone greets him reverently as their lord, but one woman informs him that snacks are becoming scarce, so Light assures her he will notify the administrator. As they continue their walk, May mentions she will ensure the issue is quickly resolved so that the people do not suspect a logistical problem. But Light tells her that since the population has grown over the last 3 years, it might be necessary to revise the entire system. Light then asks what the other members of the quartet are doing, and May informs him they are diligently fulfilling their missions. Ayuki, specifically, has been exploring the upper perimeter of the abyss and creating maps. Light is pleased, noting that the forests around the abyss are filled with monsters, but assures May that this is no problem for a genius like Ayuki, though May counters, saying she's not so sure, knowing Ayuki is as capricious as a cat. Light simply laughs and clarifies that he wouldn't have her any other way, seeing no issue with it. He then inquires about the others, and May reports that L has been working diligently on developing new magic according to his grand plan and is making excellent progress. Light mentions they have many moving pieces and hopes L doesn't get overwhelmed, but May reminds him that they enjoy serving him, so he has nothing to worry about. Finally, May informs him that Nazuna is patrolling the castle grounds as always. After all, she is an expert in close combat, though she is less reliable outside of fighting. Light says he enjoys having Nazuna around as she makes things more fun, so he isn't bothered by her quirks. Upon returning to the castle, a man named Jack greets them and tells Light he was tired of waiting. May is immediately irritated by the casual way Jack addresses her lord and reminds him that he must speak to Light with respect. May mentally curses Jack but doesn't say it aloud. Light dismisses May's concern, saying it is fine because he views Jack almost like an older brother. May remains thoroughly displeased, but Light informs her he is going to train for a while, meaning she will have to resolve her feelings internally. Afterward, on the training field, Light prepares to fight Jack, stating there will be no holding back today. Jack challenges him to come at him with everything he's got. So Light immediately rushes forward, delivering a powerful punch to his stomach that forces Jack to step back, momentarily surprised. A slightly surprised Jack laughs and tells him to calm down, noting that the strike would have killed anyone else but him. Fortunately, he is not called Jack the Iron Blood Barricade for nothing. Light reminds him that he already said he wouldn't hold back and doesn't intend to stop now. Jack admires his determination and launches a punch of his own, easily dodging Light's counterattacks. Meanwhile, we see Nazuna happily patrolling the castle grounds, clearly enjoying fulfilling Light's orders as she considers it a supremely important duty. A group of maids praises her work ethic as admirable, and Nazuna is visibly thrilled upon hearing the commendations before asking the maids where she should patrol next. The question leaves Nazuna a bit confused, so the maids explain that there is a very important and completely secret place they would love for her to check for them, a location they are not permitted to access, meaning only she can go. Nazuna asks what place they are talking about, but the maids simply smile wickedly. Still confused, Nazuna goes to the spot they mentioned but runs into Mei, who asks if something is wrong, wanting to know why she is entering Light's bedroom. Nazuna proudly states that it is because she is on patrol, but Mei assures her that the area is already secured, so she should go elsewhere. Ignoring Mei, Nazuna asks what Mei herself is doing in Light's room if he is currently training with Jack. Mei immediately becomes nervous and quickly invents an excuse, saying she was cleaning, as according to the maid's code, she cannot remain idle even when Light is not present. Without letting her finish, Nazuna enters the room to inspect her work, but upon seeing the messy bed, she comments that it looks like someone was rolling around and kicking their legs while sniffing the pillows. Mei tries to maintain her composure, telling Nazuna she did it on purpose because it is part of her unique bed-making style. Nazuna, being as clueless as ever, gets excited and asks her to elaborate, but Mei clarifies that it is a professional secret, so she cannot reveal it. Nazuna becomes even more excited, assuming it is a super special skill only useful for household chores, making her admire Mei even more and stating that she truly lives up to her reputation as Light's first and primary summon. Mei simply smiles and plays along, but inwardly, she is relieved that Nazuna is so brainless. Nazuna then remembers that the maids asked her to deliver a message to Mei, so she starts looking for the letter they gave her, and when she finally finds it, she reads it aloud without thinking, revealing that the other maids want to end Mei's monopoly over Light's room, demanding that all maids have the right to clean his quarters and that the tyrannical reign of the chief maid be brought to an end. Nazuna reads the letter with an innocent smile, but says she didn't quite understand the message, wondering if they are telling her to get checked for some kind of curse or mind spell. Mei keeps a straight face and tells her it is nothing she should worry about, as it is her responsibility as the chief maid to personally deal with the other maids and their complaints. She gives Nazuna 3 coins as thanks, and Nazuna leaves happier than ever, celebrating that she received a tip. Without wasting time, Nazuna heads straight to the market to immediately spend her money. The shop owner tells her a new shipment of snacks and sweets has just arrived. Nazuna reviews the chocolates and cakes, as well as the chips and shrimp crackers, trying to decide what to buy. But after seeing all the options, she realizes that's not what her stomach wants, so she ultimately opts for dorayaki and milk. While enjoying her food, she casually runs into Aoyuki and asks what she is doing there, as she was supposed to go up to the surface to explore the forest surrounding the abyss. Aoyuki responds with only cat-like noises, but for some reason, Nazuna assumes she understands what she is saying. Despite this, Aoyuki continues to refuse to speak like a human, so Nazuna reminds her that unlike Light, she doesn't actually understand what she is trying to communicate. Aoyuki still refuses to speak as a human, so Nazuna reminds her that unlike Light, she cannot understand what she is saying, yet Nazuna continues to guess, assuming there were trees in the way, and she offers to cut them down for her. Nazuna then realizes one cannot explore a forest without trees, so she guesses Aoyuki ran into a super strong monster. Although she doesn't use words, it is clear that Aoyuki is frustrated by the misunderstanding. And of course, Nazuna doesn't catch the hint, proudly stating that even though she was summoned after Aoyuki, she seems older and stronger. Tired of the endless chatter, Aoyuki decides to show Nazuna a piece of paper and finally speaks, saying that she found nothing, having completed a section of the map Mei had requested. So she simply returned to deliver it. Nazuna then gives Aoyuki a hard slap on the back, laughing and asking why she didn't just say so from the beginning. Dismissed with the information, Aoyuki finally leaves, saying she's still on patrol. Shortly after, Nazuna heads to the throne room, making sure no one is around before approaching the throne. She mentions being annoyed that she hasn't seen her master all day, and it would be nice to see him sitting on the throne since he always looks great when he does. Nazuna embraces the throne and rubs her face against it, wishing Light were there at that moment, but her enjoyment is interrupted by the sound of something snapping, and she realizes she broke the wing off one of the throne's sculptures. Nazuna panics, and after clumsily putting it back in place, she immediately flees, hoping no one saw her. Meanwhile, Jack calls a pause in the fight and suggests calling it a day to go to the baths. Light accepts the proposal, so after a long day of training, they decide to relax. Jack comments that Light has practically mastered the use of his body as a weapon, though Light credits Jack entirely. Jack reminds him that only a select few can stand up to him down here in the abyss, meaning there are even fewer on the surface, but notes that fewer does not mean zero. Light catches the shift in tone when Jack says that last part, and his expression turns serious as he tells Jack he is aware, noting that the surface world is full of unknowns, so he won't let his guard down for anything because he needs to see his revenge through to the end. In another scene, we see May in a meeting with the 4 junior maids who wrote the previous letter. Clearly, terrified by her authority, the maids try to feign innocence, but May reads the letter they wrote word for word to remind them what they did wrong. Feeling they have no way out, the maids have no choice but to bow and apologize for their actions. May asks them to explain themselves, but they just search for an excuse, saying they wanted to help lighten her burden since she is always so busy. Naturally, May doesn't buy the excuse and says it is even worse that they had Nazuna deliver the message instead of saying it to her face. The maids now regret their scheme, and reveal that they did it because May is dedicated to secretly sniffing the master's bed. May does her best to maintain her composure and tells them that their demands are rejected. Furthermore, from now on, she will assign the 4 of them to clean the hallway leading to the throne room, and they must do it entirely by hand. The maids immediately try to protest, saying such a thing is impossible. However, May tells them they can and they will, because the path of a maid demands it. It starts with a single step, just as climbing to level 500 begins with effort. May informs them that she will soon be going to the surface on a mission for light, so she expects everyone to work diligently in her absence. The 4 maids have no choice but to accept. Meanwhile, Nazuna returns to the market to look at a piece of armor she wants. Elle casually bumps into her and asks if she's looking for sweets or something, so Nazuna points to the armor piece, then asks what Elle is doing there, having thought she would be working on projects or doing an inspection somewhere. Elle tells her everything is going so well that she had plenty of time to come back. The two immediately start bickering as always, and Elle tells Nazuna that Light has made her a fundamental part of his revenge plans, unlike her and her tiny brain. Nazuna clarifies that she has been busy patrolling, but Elle boasts that she had tea with Light the other day to inform him of the progress of her plans. Elle assures her that next time, she will reserve a private room for them to dine together, and there will be action that night. Nazuna obviously misses the insinuation and complains, saying she wants to have tea with Light, too. Elle asks if she only wants the tea part, but Nazuna doesn't understand what else there would be. Elle then tries to explain that she means something that would stoke the fire of jealousy. Seeing Nazuna's disorientation, Elle tells her she doesn't know if Nazuna is foolish or childish. Nazuna assumes Elle is jealous of her abilities, so she mentions that she knows Elle sucks at close combat despite being very good at magic, which is why if Elle ever has trouble, she can ask for help anytime. Elle can't help but think how unbelievable Nazuna is but decides to play along, telling her that she will surely ask for that help someday. Clearly satisfied, Nazuna returns to the castle to continue her patrol, and Elle is certain that Nazuna truly is one of a kind. On the other side, the maids continue to complain about the punishment they received. They are more than annoyed by the chief maid's unfair management style, feeling intense envy and disgust. Despite their protests, they know May is practically untouchable, so they can do nothing but dream. The 4 maids start fantasizing about cleaning Light's room instead of May, even saying they would surely take his used utensils and lick them clean. May has a very busy schedule, so they don't understand why she doesn't allow them to handle the cleaning. One of the maids mentions that May was the first summoned Light maid, and apparently, 3 months passed until Ayuki was summoned as the second. This means they were alone until then, trapped in a dungeon with dangerous monsters, not to mention that Light's level was even lower at that time. Imagining that situation, the maids immediately explode with jealousy, saying May is extremely lucky. Suddenly, the 4 decide to try to channel their rage into a powerful curse that would kill May. However, their ritual is interrupted when May appears, saying she was passing by and overheard some very choice words that seemed directed at her. They were so intent on chanting the word die that she now wants them to explain why. The maids tremble with fear, and one of them immediately says she swore absolute loyalty to May. The others do the same, saying they have admired her as a mentor and sister and wanted to be her subordinates even before being summoned. Despite their obvious lies, May repeats the chant of die die die, making the maids feel cornered, and they admit they were a little jealous. After all, May was the first. May clarifies that she is under no obligation to share this. But during the 3 months leading up to Ayuki's summoning, Light spent the entire time reading all kinds of books and practicing all sorts of martial arts. There was no time for any of the vulgar things they have been fantasizing about. May confesses that she came by because she thought she had been too harsh on them. Perhaps her orders were excessive. However, she was mistaken, and since they apparently haven't had enough, she also assigns them to clean the throne room. The maids try to protest again, but May tells them they have plenty of time to curse her, so they clearly have time to clean. With no other option, they are forced to clean the throne room, knowing they must finish by morning, and they aren't even sure if they can manage it in time. In the midst of their rush, the wing of the sculpture that Nazuna had previously broken falls off when one of them tries to clean the throne. As they panic, Nazuna lies peacefully in bed, completely happy about another successful day protecting the peace, but still a little disappointed that she didn't see her master at all, which frustrates her. If he would just give the order, she would undoubtedly go to the surface and crush all the losers there. It is clear that this won't happen, so, with no other option, Nazuna falls asleep hoping to at least see Light the next day. Just as she wished, the next day, while arguing with L, Light finds Nazuna in the training fields. Nazuna is overcome with joy, knowing her wish came true, though L assures her that Light didn't come to see her. As they start trading insults again, Light decides to pet Aoyuki like a cat, finding her very cute. L asks him what he's doing, and Light explains that he can't help but treat her like a real cat. The girls are clearly not pleased with this, so Light asks Aoyuki to give him some space as it's time to get down to business. Suddenly, a massive hellhound appears, and Light begins to tremble with fear due to the trauma of his first day in the abyss. As he freezes, the girls' attitude suddenly changes. They glare at the hellhound with menacing eyes, viewing its presence as an offense to their master. They even think they should eradicate them from both the dungeon and the surface because their mere presence disturbs their master. The hellhound retreats, sensing the imposing power of their level 9,999, but Light interrupts them before they can act, clarifying that he is fine now and approaching the hellhound to pet it, apologizing for the girls' behavior. Light knows that even if he said it as a joke, the girls would genuinely annihilate them, but that's not what he wants. Without further delay, he informs them that he has received news from May, so it is time to put the plan into action. The prey has taken the bait, so he counts on them to serve the first course of his revenge, which has been 3 years in the making, and thus ends episode 2. Cutting to another scene, we find Garou in the Beastmen Federation, the official city of the Wolf Tribe, where all the Beastmen show him great respect. He simply basks in the daily praise he receives, viewing everyone else as mere pawns as he struts through the city. Spotting a human child rummaging through a garbage can, he doesn't hesitate to walk over, kick the boy, and spit in his face. Garou orders the child to get out of his sight before heading to a bar with his pack, treating everyone to food and drinks while boasting that he has money to spare. All his companions praise him, calling him an idol for lower-class folks like them. Seeing him rise from a slum orphan to the future leader of the pack is totally inspiring, and they can't help but admire him. Garou clarifies that it isn't easy, explaining they have to learn clever ways to use the instinctive perception that all beastmen are born with. The others argue that his ability is on another level, since even dragons bow before his skills. Garou explains it's all in the nose, the power of smell, as he has to distinguish decent jobs from nasty ones by their scent, which is how he climbed to the top, accepting only the truly good jobs, including one from 3 years ago. Everyone knows he's talking about the Concordat of the tribes, and one of them asks what kind of job it was. Garou just smirks, reminding them that the Federation requires him to maintain secrecy on that matter. The others apologize and go back to drinking, but Garou thinks about what happened 3 years ago, knowing it was the most satisfying job he ever had. After all, he just had to kill a pathetic human child they suspected might be a master, and now he's rich and famous for it. It bothers him a little that they never found Light after he teleported away, but he's sure there's no way the kid could have survived. Still, he wishes he knew more about this master that every country in the world is so desperate to find. But he knows that investigating further is risky. As everyone enjoys their drinks, a woman named May suddenly appears and interrupts the party, asking Garou if he is the former member of the Concordat of the tribes. Garou confirms it, so May introduces herself, stating she serves Light as his most loyal maid. She's been searching for her master's whereabouts for some time, as he is a key figure of noble descent. Guru clearly doesn't buy her story, telling her she's not fooling anyone with that tale and clarifying that he cannot reveal any details. Guru falls silent, pondering. He knows the higher-ups should have already found out everything possible about Light, and there was never any mention of him being from a noble family. However, in the unlikely event this girl is telling the truth, he can already smell a mountain of cash. Guru tells her he still finds it hard to believe her, and May clarifies that she has been traveling the world searching for Light. She only recently learned that he had joined a group of adventurers but then received news that he had already died in the abyss. That's why she needs him to guide her, as she wants to see for herself the place where Light was last seen alive. Guru warns her that such a trip carries many risks, but May says she is prepared to pay him for his help. The entire room goes quiet as May opens a briefcase overflowing with gold, but Guru remains suspicious. He can't believe Light belongs to a noble family, and it seems too convenient that she's paying so much just for an escort. However, even assuming it's a trap, he knows that a single human girl poses no real threat to him. With this, Guru accepts the deal, claiming the money is hardly a factor since Light was like a little brother to him. He proudly boasts that she stands before the future leader of the wolf tribe, promising to assemble a pack of his finest men to guide her through the dangerous dungeon known as the Abyss. May smiles and thanks him with tears in her eyes, maintaining a perfect performance to ensure he takes the bait. Guru and his pack spend an entire month leading her deep into the abyss, all while May feigns exhaustion and helplessness. Seeing her this way, Guru is confident it'll be easy, planning to get her to her destination without a scratch, only to shatter her right on top of Light's supposed grave. Once they arrive at the spot where Light allegedly died, Guru spins a tale about a monster ambush, claiming Light was stabbed before unfortunately falling into a teleportation trap, never to be seen again. May continues her charade, weeping for Light, so Guru offers a fake apology, explaining the attack caught them all by surprise. As he speaks, the rest of his group cuts off her only escape route, and Guru prepares to make his move. However, as May cries for Light, she suddenly drops the act and says she feels a profound pain for him. After all, he was brought to this gloomy and disgusting dungeon only to be betrayed by vile scum and beaten to the brink of death. If only she had entered his service a little sooner, he never would have suffered the agony of being kicked and pierced by arrows. Guru recoils in shock, alarmed and wondering how she could possibly know those details. The only ones who know what truly happened are the members of the Concordat of the tribes and a few elite executives from each nation. He demands to know who she is and who she works for, suspecting another tribe sent her to spy on him. May pauses and clarifies that her loyalty lies completely and exclusively with her master, Light. She adds that if he insists on insulting her honor as a maid, they will find out who is truly rotten on the inside after his entrails are spilled on the floor. Her mere presence makes them all tremble. Guru still can't understand why he's afraid. He reminds himself she's just a human girl, nothing more than trash they could have used and sold. It makes no sense, but looking into her eyes sends a chill down his spine, and Guru realizes he is already dead. Yet, before she can do anything, Light suddenly intervenes, telling her to calm down, as Guru is his to play with. May immediately follows his order, while the other beastmen are stunned to see a child in the heart of the abyss, knowing there's no way a human brat could have made it this far. They ask for instructions, but Guru remains frozen in place, staring at Light in utter disbelief. Light then shows his face, revealing Guru's worst nightmare and confirming his identity. His fear quickly transforms into rage as he realizes Light is actually alive. Light simply greets him with an innocent smile, saying he has come to collect his revenge. With 3 years of interest. The other beastmen are clearly confused by the situation, but Guru tries to maintain his composure and laughs, saying he can't believe he's still alive. He brazenly mocks him, calling it ridiculous that a level 15 human has come all this way to get revenge on someone as incredible as him, a level 150 warrior. Guru roars with laughter, exclaiming that he has never been more grateful. That humans can be so stupid. He doesn't know how a brat like Light managed to survive, but he assures him he's made a huge mistake by showing his face. After all, once he kills him and brings his body back, his place as the Beastman King will be guaranteed. Light simply sighs in disappointment, asking if he isn't curious about how he's still alive or what his relationship with May is. After all, the normal thing to do in this situation would be to demand answers. Guru admits he has a point, as he can't gauge how strong that weird girlfriend of his is, but he says it doesn't matter because two humans can't do a thing against a pack of beastmen. Besides, everyone in his pack is level 130 or higher, and Light is just a common human with a useless gift. He bets that Light only survived through sheer luck because May rescued him in time. Light doesn't deny it, as it's true, but Garu wastes no more time and attacks. However, just as they all leap towards him, several of their heads are sent flying in less than a second, thanks to May, who diligently protects her master. Garu and the others are frozen in shock, as it happened so fast they couldn't even see what happened. May warns them that anyone who dares to threaten her master will pay with their head. Her intimidating aura vanishes instantly when Light thanks her and asks her to block the exit for him. May blushes slightly but immediately obeys his command, declaring that no one will escape this place as long as she's on watch. The beastmen panic, but Garu tells them to calm down, explaining it was just a surprise attack and that cheap tricks like that are the only way an inferior being could ever beat them. Light comments that Garu hasn't changed at all over the years, as he's still convinced that humans are inferior. The question is, has he ever considered that perhaps the beastmen are the weaker ones? But Garu asserts that humans are nothing but weak losers with small mana reserves, making them all low-level trash. He decides to show him what true power is, revealing that he is level 158. Light calmly tells him that the levels each race can reach vary greatly, and the discrimination arising from that is what gave birth to the widespread contempt for humans. Garu confirms this, saying that beastmen are higher up on the food chain, far above anything humans could ever dream of. Light then asks how he explains the fact that two of his men are now dead. At this, Garu doesn't know what to say, stammering that they probably used some magic item or something. Garu gets irritated by the way Light is looking at him, so he and his pack immediately charge. However, Light effortlessly defeats them all and looks down on them, asking if they're done yet. Garu slowly gets up, boiling with rage, reminding Light that he is better than a stupid human like him. This time, instead of attacking again, Garu pulls out a magic sphere, telling Light he's going to wipe that look off his face. Without a second's hesitation, he smashes the sphere on the ground to summon a Majin beast, Fenrir, making the entire place tremble. Garu laughs confidently, revealing that this is his trump card. A level 500 Fenrir. Everyone in Garu's pack is in awe at seeing such a powerful secret weapon, but Light just sighs in disappointment once again, saying that level 500 is pathetically weak. Of course, Garu just assumes he's insane for saying such a thing, so he tells him he should be begging for his life right now, wanting to see him plead and whimper just like he did 3 years ago. To his surprise, Light simply tells him to go ahead, declaring he won't move a single step and that Garu can do whatever he wants. Irritated by his defiance, Garu accepts the challenge and decides his Fenrir will erase him from existence. Fenrir immediately attacks with a Majin Beast explosive howl, concentrating the entire mana reserve of a level 500 creature into a single blast. Garu is certain it's enough to barbecue any human, but he eats his words when he sees Light standing before him without a single scratch. As he remains frozen in shock, Light calmly comments that he gave a rather fancy name to an attack that basically did nothing but kick up a lot of dust. Garu is still trying to process the fact that Light has enough power to completely nullify an attack from a level 500 creature. Then, Light decides it's his turn. Because calling that pathetic mutt Fenrir gives the wrong impression, he's going to show him what the real one looks like. Suddenly, he pulls out an ultra-rare card and unleashes a level 900 primeval god Fenrir. As everyone stands paralyzed on the spot, Light asks his Fenrir to eliminate Garu's summon. Without moving an inch, the divine Fenrir simply blows a gentle, icy breeze that completely freezes Garu's Fenrir and shatters it into 1,000 pieces. Stumbling backward in fear, Garu recognizes that Light possesses a monster powerful enough to destroy a level 500 creature in the blink of an eye. His previous confidence completely vanishes. Light mentions that he could have easily dealt with that level 500 Majin Beast himself. Light then decides to reveal his true level, 9,999. Everyone is stunned, as humans are supposed to cap out at level 100, so this should be impossible. A nervous Garu tells him he must be an imposter, as he looks exactly the same as he did 3 years ago, whereas any normal human would have grown since then. Light explains that he is wearing the bracelet of youth, which prevents him from aging, and he uses it to constantly remind himself of all the pain, rage, and despair from that day, wanting to keep it all fresh in his mind. Finally, reality hits Garou, and he realizes that the monster standing before him is truly Light, which means he is now completely doomed. Without hesitation, he and his pack throw their weapons to the ground and bow before Light, begging for his forgiveness. Garou desperately explains that he had no choice but to follow the Federation's orders and that he never wanted to hurt him. He then tries to blame the others for everything, claiming that today's plan was his pack's idea and he had nothing to do with it. The other beastmen are not at all happy to hear such a blatant lie, but Garou silences them and speaks directly to Light, saying that while it's true he betrayed his trust, they also had good times together. Light ignores all his rambling and decides to ask him something. He wants to know everything about this master business they mentioned 3 years ago and why the government is so interested in finding one. But Garou nervously explains they were only told to search for one and that he knows nothing more. So, Light asks why they tried to kill him as soon as they found out he wasn't a master. Garou insists that he truly knows nothing. At this point, all the other beastmen in the room start lying out of fear, claiming that they know the answer. However, in a matter of seconds, Maid slices them to pieces, declaring that any attempt to deceive her master is punished by death. Garou panics, realizing he's the only one left alive. Light decides to ask him one last question. Considering the power he has witnessed, does Garou believe he could win if he were to wage a war against the surface world? Light warns him not to lie, as May is equipped with the Eye of Truth, capable of seeing through anything. Completely terrified, Garou admits that at first, the battle would likely lean in Light's favor, given the immense power he wields. However, no matter how high his level is, he is still just one person. The nations of the world have spent years stockpiling special weapons, armor, and items. Once they organize and face him with their full arsenal, even he might struggle. Light accepts his answer, saying it was exactly what he figured, as there's a limit to what one person can do on the battlefield. He still has more questions for Garou but decides to teleport first, using a card in his possession. Garou braces himself in fear, and when he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a vast palace he has never seen before. An entire army of dragon beasts, fairy maids, living armors, and other species bow as Light arrives. Garou is completely frozen as he sees Light sitting on the throne, who then asks everyone to rise and display their stats. All the different types of monsters reveal levels ranging from 6,000 to 9,000. There are armors at level 5,000, and a trio of knights, including Jack, at level 7,777. The army of living armors starts at level 1,500, with some other races reaching level 3,000. To top it all off, Mei, Nazuna, Eli, Ayuki, and Light himself are all level 9,999. Light tells Garou that these are the forces he has gathered over the past 3 years. At this sight, Garou's fur instantly turns gray, and he is clearly beyond terrified. Light simply smiles and repeats his question, wanting to know if Garou thinks he stands a chance of winning a war against the nations of the surface world. Garou can't even muster the courage to speak, but his face tells Light everything he needs to know. Light congratulates him, saying he has won the reward of being annihilated in a pain and despair worse than death. In that moment, Garou realizes that he and the Concordat of the tribes were the ones who gave birth to this monstrosity, one that could end the world in the blink of an eye. He calls Light the Lord of Destruction, and as tears stream down his face, he asks if he is trying to become a god. Light says he likes the sound of that, but someone is hiding the truth from him for reasons that may be noble or nefarious. Whether he takes the path of a benevolent god or a demonic monarch depends on that answer. After all, with his gift, he can grant blessings and fortune or plunge everything into death and despair. The world now has the opportunity to show him which it deserves by answering the question he has posed. And so, he will now begin his march from the abyss to the surface. When Light finally returns to the surface, he runs excitedly towards his hometown, eager to see Els, Yume, and his parents after so long. However, during the 2.5 years it took him to return from the abyss, his town was destroyed by unknown forces. Now, 6 months later, the only hope he has left is that his siblings' bodies were never found, so they must be alive, and that is the last spark of hope he can cling to. After paying his respects to the victims, one of his subordinates, Gold, suggests it's time to leave, as he doesn't want to camp outdoors on their first day on the surface. Nemo Mumu, the girl by his side, immediately scolds him for such an attitude when their master is still mourning his family. Light simply watches their entire interaction with a smile, thinking he can never tell if those two are best friends or mortal enemies. Gold tells her he's sure she'd also prefer to sleep in the comfort of a real bed, but Nemo Mumu asks him not to lump her in with him. Nemo Mumu clarifies that she would gladly stay by Light's side, regardless of whether they have to sleep on the grass or in a swamp. Gold retorts that he too would face the iciest peaks or the hottest lava alongside his lord, because the loyalty he holds for him shines brighter than any gold. He's not called the Golden Knight for nothing. However, unless she wants him exhausted from a bad night's sleep, they should avoid camping. Nemo Mumu finally admits he has a point, and Light tells them they can worry about lodging later, so for now, they'll focus on gathering information. Although they have learned that their forces can compete with those of the surface world, it would be foolish to charge headfirst into war. Gold agrees, saying that if you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Nemo Mumu assumes their objective now is to learn the military strength of each nation. And Light confirms this, stating he bets the destruction of his hometown is related to the fact that he could have been a master. He truly wants to know what makes a master worth so much bloodshed, and the mere thought makes his blood boil as the ground trembles beneath his feet from his fury. Light declares that if the truth behind it all turns out to be evil and twisted, then he will turn this world into a burning hell. Even Nemo Mumu shows some concern seeing him in that state, and Gold tells him he must suppress that kind of anger when they are in the city, as it could kill someone. Light quickly calms down and apologizes, saying he will be careful. After that, he uses his ability to summon a fool's mask and puts it on to hide his identity. With that, Light bids farewell to his parents and finally departs with his subordinates. As they fly towards their next destination, Nemo Mumu asks Light what their first mission in Dagas will be. Gold tells her to be careful how she addresses him, and Light reminds her that he is not Light when they are on the surface, but will go by the name Dark. Nemo Mumu quickly apologizes for the mistake, and Gold tells her they obviously can't use his real name here, otherwise the Concordia of Tribes would discover them. Once that's settled, Light informs them that he's going to register Dark as an adventurer and then climb the ranks by doing missions, as this will allow him to get information from the bigger fish. That's why for now, they will only focus on increasing their adventurer rank. Gold and Nemo Mumu agree with him, and shortly after, they manage to spot something on the horizon. It's Dagas, so Light decides to land and continue on foot from there. In just a few minutes, they spot a group of dwarves trying to rob a human's cart. The poor man just begs them not to hurt his son, but they clearly have no good intentions. Light confirms that things aren't very civilized up here, and just then, Gold's shiny armor catches the dwarves' attention. Nemo Mumu immediately scolds him, but Gold just laughs, saying he wouldn't be the Golden Knight without his signature gleam. The dwarves demand they show themselves, threatening to kill the human and his son. Light says just one word, and in a matter of seconds, all the dwarves are tied up thanks to Gold and Nemo Mumu. Both the man and the boy are stunned to see how powerful they are, and as thanks, he offers to take them to Dagas in his cart. The excited boy mentions he's never seen humans defeat dwarves so quickly, they must be super strong. As they head to Dagas, the man says their goal must be to enter and explore the dungeon, assuming they are a famous party of adventurers. Light clarifies that they are still aspiring, unofficial adventurers, which is why they want to visit Dagas to register at the guild and rank up. This information surprises them a bit, but the man tells them they are definitely heading to the right place. After all, Dagas is the southernmost city of the Dwarven Kingdom, and is located right on the border with the Human Kingdom to the east, and the Elven Kingdom to the west. Although there are many disputes between the countries, the quality of the dungeon here is high and attracts many adventurers, making the city quite prosperous despite its rural status. A good number of humans gather here, which fortunately allows him to run a hotel catering to them. After a while, they finally arrive in Dagas, and the man drops them off at the city entrance. Before leaving, he introduces himself as Carnal and asks them to stop by his hotel if they plan to stay the night. Once they part ways, the boy remarks that it's a bit strange for rookies like them to be so strong. And Carnal agrees, saying their situation must be special. Nemo, Mumu and Gold finally get to see what surface cities are like, as it's the first time for both of them. Gold comments that there seem to be many shops selling weapons and armor in the area. Light explains that this is due to the large number of adventurers, not to mention that the Dwarven Kingdom specializes in blacksmithing. Once inside the guild, they confirm his words are true. Most of the aspiring adventurers are human. However, they also notice that the humans practically cower before the other races, meaning they are treated poorly here as well. When they head to the reception to register Light under the name Dark, Nemo Mumu immediately causes a scene, exclaiming that her master is not F-rank material. The receptionist replies that everyone starts at the same rank because that's what the rules dictate. Nemo Mumu still refuses, arguing that Dark should be an exception to the rule since he is the supreme master above all others. The receptionist refuses again, and this time Light steps in, bowing to apologize for his companion's behavior and saying he's happy to start from F-rank. After successfully registering with the guild, Nemo Mumu cries for messing up so badly that her master had to apologize for her. Gold doesn't hesitate to mock her, rubbing more salt in the wound, but Light tries to comfort her so she'll stop crying. Afterward, they decide to go to Carnal's hotel, and Light tells him he'd like to rent the entire top floor for a month. He also kindly asks that no one, including his staff, set foot there during their stay. Light offers a large sum of gold coins to pay for the inconvenience. Carnal quickly refuses, saying he can't accept money from someone who saved his life. Despite this, Light asks him to consider it another one of his jobs, so Carnal accepts and says he'll arrange everything according to his wishes. Once in the hotel room, Light uses his ability to deploy silence, magic interference, and detection wards across the entire top floor. With that, in a matter of seconds, they eliminate any problematic magical items that could be watching them or listening to their conversation. Light tells them to relax, but Nemo Mumu says she understands why he chose to pose as an adventurer in the surface world. However, despite his great power, there's always a chance he could get hurt up here, so he could have stayed in the abyss and simply given them the order to handle everything. Light's hand suddenly clenches into a fist, and he interrupts Nemo Mumu to ask if she's trying to exclude him from his own revenge plan. Nemo Mumu immediately tells him she would never dare do such a thing, but the whole place starts to tremble from his fury. She instantly kneels and begs for forgiveness, saying she crossed the line and wants him to forget everything she said. Light watches her with rage, but the moment is interrupted by Gold's laughter, who comments that there are things a good man must face regardless of the danger. He sees that their master seeks retribution with his own hands, without intermediaries, and that is worthy of applause. Light smiles and finally calms down, then gently approaches Nemo Mumu to apologize, saying he knows she was just worried about his safety, but his emotions got the better of him. Nemo Mumu refuses to accept his apology, stating the fault is hers for going too far, and asks him to allow her to renew her oath of loyalty to him. Light accepts with some discomfort, so Nemo Mumu takes his foot in her hands with adoration and kisses it gently. Light knows that a foot kiss is a profound gesture of respect, and that many leaders demand it from their followers, but he finds it so embarrassing that he's not a fan. The moment is suddenly interrupted by Gold, who comments on how fetishistic the scene looks. After a moment of silence, Nemo Mumu shouts at him, telling him not to turn her display of devotion to Light into something perverted. Light silently steps aside as they begin to argue, as always, not wanting to get involved. The next day, the three of them head to the market, observing the different things being sold there. Light comments that the place certainly looks lively, so the dungeon must be as good as they say. Gold's shining armor clearly stands out, as people around them whisper things about him and also about Nemo Mumu due to her appearance. Some also comment on Light's strange mask, and he knows it fits perfectly with his dark persona, although perhaps it draws too much attention. After walking for a while, they finally see the huge line of people waiting to enter the dungeon. He mentions that there don't seem to be any elves around. Light explains that the lack of elves is likely due to the Dwarven Kingdom and the Elven Kingdom are currently in dispute over who has the right to that dungeon. Nemo Mumu praises him while hugging him from behind, saying he always has an answer for everything. Light asks if they really have to be like this, and she reminds him that her duty is to have his back and ensure he's safe at all times. Just then, three hooded figures suddenly cut into the line, so Light observes them carefully. He knows the one carrying the bag must be a servant and that one of them seems decently trained, although he has many openings. However, the man in the front moves with impressive precision despite the huge weapon he carries on his back, so he must be an experienced fighter. The kids behind the three hooded figures look uncomfortable seeing them cut in so blatantly. They wonder if they should do something, yet they're afraid they might be dragonutes or something similar, knowing how much they hate humans. Light notices their internal conflict and decides to intervene, telling the hooded people that it's rude to cut in line. The man with the huge weapon looks down on him and asks if he's talking to him. Anticipating his attempt to intimidate, Light comments that he doesn't see any other idiots who have cut in line. He didn't say it, but he thought it. The man warns him that he doesn't know who he's messing with, and Light simply replies that he clearly doesn't, since they are all covering their faces. Even assuming he's someone famous, that's precisely all the more reason not to commit such a rude act. Gold agrees with him, saying it would undoubtedly damage his reputation. Nemo Mumu tells them they're being a nuisance, so they should go to the back of the line unless they're too foolish to understand how lines work. The man instantly grabs his weapon, saying no miserable human worm has the right to talk to him like that. His companion quickly stops him, asking him to hold back as causing a scene wouldn't be wise. He also reminds him that using his sword would be excessive, and with that, the man decides to back down. The three hooded figures head to the back of the line, but the man warns Light that he will remember him. Light apologizes to the other people in line for making such a fuss. Everyone cheers for him and tells him he did the right thing. The kids from before thank him for intervening, saying they didn't have the courage to say anything for fear of starting a fight and losing. Light tells them not to worry and clarifies that he only spoke out of self-interest. After all, cutting in line affects everyone waiting, so there's no need for them to thank him. Suddenly, one of the kids asks Gold if his armor is really made of gold, clearly curious. The other kids scold him for being so nosy, but the people around also want to know. Yes, nosy people. Gold laughs and prepares to show off, but Nemo Mumu quickly interrupts him and tells everyone his armor is completely fake. She clarifies that it would be useless to make armor from something as malleable as gold, and the kid from before comments that he's just a show-off with flashy, tacky armor then. His friend immediately shuts him up and apologizes for his bad behavior. Light tells him not to worry. He explains that Gold uses that color on his armor to symbolize his dedication to the code of chivalry. Gold confirms this, saying there is no better color to represent the shining example he sets for all knights, and he also knows it will help them gain notoriety as an adventurer party. One of the kids asks if this is their first time exploring the dungeon here, and Light admits it's obvious they could tell. The boy tells him that the floors of this dungeon are much more extensive than any other, so it's common for adventurers to camp inside. However, he noticed they weren't carrying any gear for that, so he assumed it must be their first time. Light thanks him for the information, but the boy downplays it and apologizes for not being of more help. Once the kids enter the dungeon, Gold comments that he didn't know their lack of equipment would give them away so easily. Light explains that they're just too used to using an item box to store things, so Nemo Mumu asks if they should carry fake luggage to keep up appearances. It's finally their turn to enter the dungeon. Light tells Nemo Mumu they'll have to think about that later. Nemo Mumu looks around and comments that this is the first time she's been in a dungeon other than the Abyss, but finds the phenomenon of them existing all over the world in different shapes and sizes very strange. Gold mentions that the leader of the group they met earlier said this dungeon was particularly extensive. Light explains that they would have to analyze the dungeon's core to solve the mystery behind them all, but that proved impossible even for him. Dungeons are filled with mana that gets stronger the deeper you go, and that power can be used to create things, including monsters and traps, which makes them infinitely variable. After walking for a while, they reach an open area with mountains and flying creatures, confirming that dungeons are worlds of their own, completely different from the surface. Nemo Mumu informs Light that she doesn't sense anyone in their immediate vicinity. Without wasting time, he uses his gift to release 3 cards: Clairvoyance, Concealment, and Flight. Thanks to this, they can easily fly over the land, using Clairvoyance to find the next floor, Concealment to avoid enemies, and Flight to move along the shortest route. Meanwhile, the hooded man from before vents his frustration on the dungeon monsters. He claims to be the youngest and most elite of the Elven Kingdom's White Knights, who earned accolades faster than anyone thanks to his sheer talent. He introduces himself as Kaido, the legendary hero with the blood of a master. Once again, his companion, Yannick, tries to calm him down, but Kaido, still enraged, tells him to shut up, saying those surface worms had the audacity to insult him. He knows his low level of 1,500 is the cause of it. Yannick tells him that level is nothing to scoff at, as it far exceeds the typical limit for elves. Kaido disagrees, saying it's a disgrace for a legendary hero like him and that there's no way his limit is 1,500. He just needs to level up, and then he'll crush all the pigs who mock him. Yannick tells him not to feel that way, reminding him they have formed a mutually beneficial alliance, so he has no qualms about putting the results of his research at his service. But Kaito turns and walks away in disgust, knowing he can't trust that dark elf one bit, so he plans to bury him once he's helped him level up. Meanwhile, Light kills a large number of orcs. So he asks Gold and Nemo Mumu to collect the magic gems and call it a day. After all, they just need to present the guild with proof of reaching the 3rd floor for now. Once that's done, they return to the 1st floor in a short time thanks to Light's powers. As they fly, Light notices the group of kids they met earlier being surrounded by goblins. They stop to watch for a bit, and Gold comments that the 3 boys in the front are the fighters, while the girl in the back provides magic support. The kids easily defeat the goblins, and Light decides to land to give them a warning. He reminds them that keeping focus on the enemy is a fundamental part of combat, but they shouldn't let that distract them from watching their backs. Just then, the kids realize he stopped a bush snake that was about to attack them. Light warns them that a bite from one of those won't kill them, but it can paralyze them for a while, which would be fatal in the middle of a battle. The kids bow gratefully for the warning, but at that moment, a pack of bush wolves suddenly appears. Light knows those creatures usually live deep in the forest, so it's strange to see them this far out. The kids prepare to run, but Light doesn't move. And the bush wolves simply run past them. Which means they are fleeing from an even bigger problem. In a matter of seconds, a gigantic quad mantis appears, causing the kids to freeze in fear with the realization that they're screwed. The kids can't believe their eyes. The giant mantis before them was a species thought to have been exterminated 10 years ago. Their leader, Hans, immediately tells his younger sister, Nene, to hit it with a spell to unbalance it, creating a chance for them all to escape. Seeing their plan to flee, Mei asks if they wouldn't mind if her party hunted it instead, with Momo adding that a level 500 monster like this one must have a massive bounty on its head. Hans is baffled by their casual attitude, trying to warn them that fighting the creature is a death sentence and they should report back to the guild immediately, but Light simply replies that it will be fine. The mantis lunges at them, prompting Light to decide it's time to squash the bug. Garth is the first to engage, his sword clashing against the mantis's hide before he backs away, remarking that the beast took his hit without a scratch and that its scythes are incredibly tough, to which Mei just calls him a sore loser. Light decides to use his gift, firing a fire arrow, but the mantis expertly bats it away with its scythes, sending it flying back toward them. Hans is convinced they stand no chance against it, and asks Milla to support them with a spell, but she's just watching in awe, suddenly exclaiming that Light just cast a combat spell without an incantation, something she considers completely insane. Since Hans and Nene are warriors and know nothing about magic, they don't understand her excitement and just urge her to help. Garth simply laughs, telling them not to worry and to just watch and learn, as he's about to show them how a real knight handles his weapons on the battlefield. He tells Hans that defending with a shield while attacking with a sword isn't a bad approach, but it's far from the best. For their first lesson, Garth uses his shield to parry one of the mantis's strikes at the perfect moment, the impact completely shattering one of its sides as the children watch in astonishment. He explains that all it takes is a well-timed counter to turn a shield into a powerful weapon. For their second lesson, he tells them to strike with their sword when they catch an opponent off guard, and as he says this, he slices off one of the mantis's legs, remarking that battles are all about creativity and skill. Hans realizes Garth is far more than just the braggart he initially seemed to be. Light decides it's his turn again and fires another volley of fire arrows, but this time, when the mantis tries to swat them away, the projectiles change trajectory mid-air and strike it from behind. He explains that this time, he took full manual control of the arrows, so the mantis can't simply deflect them. Multiple arrows bombard the creature from all directions, and Milla is stunned to see Light controlling 30 projectiles simultaneously. Light then uses a combination of assembly and incineration magic to tear off another one of its legs. He decides it's time to end it, but the mantis, sensing defeat, suddenly turns to flee instead of continuing the fight. Light admits the creature is smarter than he thought, but he won't let it escape. He uses another card to create a massive wall of fire, blocking the mantis's escape route. Milla gasps again, utterly blown away to see him now casting tactical class spells without an incantation, a feat that even the most skilled elves struggle to achieve. Hans and Nene are now more focused on Milla's fanatical outburst than on the monster, having never seen her act this way before. Seeing its escape blocked, the mantis spreads its wings to fly away. But May leaps impossibly high into the air, dicing the creature to ribbons with her dagger in a flash. However, the moment she lands, Garth scolds her for shredding the monster into useless scraps, pointing out that they can't sell any of its parts for profit now. May immediately panics at her costly mistake, while the kids just stand there, stunned that the trio actually defeated the beast. Once May calms down, the entire group begins searching for the mantis's magic gem so they can leave before sunset. After a short search, Hans finds it, and Garth teases May that she's lucky it wasn't destroyed along with everything else. Light is just relieved they found it, as they can turn it in to increase their adventurer rank. Hans then asks if they're part of a famous adventurer party, guessing they must be B, A, or even S rank. Light quickly denies this, explaining that they're all F rank newbies who have only just started. The children are left completely paralyzed, unable to process that a team of absolute rookies just took down the giant mantis. With the battle over, Milla uses an incantation to create a sphere of water, offering it to them so they can clean up. Garth laughs, boasting that his armor is as flawless and shiny as ever, though he admits his master's hands could use a wash. Light gladly uses the water, but insists everyone else should use it too, feeling it would be wrong to have it all to himself. Nenny is the first to happily accept and wash her hands. Afterward, Light thanks Milla for using her precious mana just to provide them with water. But Hans insists it's the least they could do after they saved their lives, and each of the kids properly thanks them. Hans mentions they are about to set up camp for the night nearby and invites Light's party to join them, offering their simple tent and food. Light hesitates, not wanting to be a burden, but Hans insists, pointing out that it's dangerous to travel after sunset and that his sister Milla is desperate to talk to him about magic. Hearing this, Light agrees to stay. As they eat dinner together, Light tells Milla that his parents were mages, which she says explains his incredible talent. Light compliments her in return, but she quickly dismisses it, saying she can't even perform chantless spells, let alone tactical class ones. Nine doesn't understand why that's so impressive, so Milla explains that there are 3 classes of magic. Combat class spells like Fire Arrow are for single targets. Tactical class spells, like the fire wall Light used, affect a wide area. And finally, strategic class spells are powerful enough to have a global impact, like causing tsunamis or calling down meteors. She explains that casting such spells usually requires a large group of mages chanting in unison. While races like Dragonkin, Elves, and Dark Elves can cast advanced magic with ease, it's a different story for humans. And yet, Light, a human, cast a tactical class spell without any incantation, a feat so unheard of it makes him a living legend. Garth and Momo nod in agreement, confirming she knows her stuff. Milla is visibly thrilled by the whole topic, but her brother Hans tells her to calm down. He admits he doesn't understand much about magic, but it's easy to see that Light is a kind-hearted gentleman. He then encourages Milla, reminding her she's talented enough to earn a recommendation to the Duchy's Sorcery Academy, and that one day, he's sure she'll be casting tactical class spells all on her own. Light asks if she's referring to the nation jointly established by all races, the Nine-Bound Duchy. Hans confirms, and Garth remarks that Milla must be a truly gifted mage if she could get into the most prestigious academy in the world. Despite her talent, Hans explains that they tragically lost their parents in an epidemic, so Milla was never able to attend. That's why he and Milla, along with their childhood friends Hans and Nenny, formed their adventurer party to make a living. However, their new goal is to earn enough money by exploring the dungeon to finally send Milla to the Duchy's Sorcery Academy. Hans and Nenny chime in, reminding him it's their dream too, but Milla tells them she's happy just being with them and doesn't want them to do anything reckless. Light smiles at their warm interaction, as it reminds him of his own younger sister. Because of this, he decides to reassure them, telling them everything will work out and he knows they'll succeed, especially with Milla's obvious talent. She thanks him with a sincere smile, and Hans then asks what motivated their group to become adventurers. Light shares that his own parents died in a house fire, and May adds that the incident left him with horrific burns, which is why they're on a journey to find a potion that can heal him. Garth explains that both he and May were heavily indebted to Light's parents, which is why they travel together now. The children fall silent after hearing their story, so Nine decides to change the subject, asking if Garth and May are dating. May immediately gets defensive, declaring her heart belongs exclusively to Light. They soon start their usual bickering, lightening the mood. Elsewhere, Minato is busy exterminating orcs, while the sage collects the samples he needs for his research. He explains it's all part of his attempt to overcome the growth limits imposed on each race, and the next step is to gather the main material for his experiment, humans. Weeks later, Light visits the guild to turn in all the magic gems they've collected. The receptionist is thrilled to see another massive haul, and the other adventurers in the guild recognize him as the one rumored to have defeated the giant mantis, now known as the Black. Meanwhile, May tells the receptionist that Light deserves to be S rank. After cashing in the gems, they find that even people outside the guild recognize them, and Light notes they've started drawing a lot of attention. As they're walking, two adventurers named Zubin and Gilbert suddenly approach Light, telling him that everyone in town is calling him the Black. May quickly gets defensive, but Zubin panics and clarifies they don't want any trouble. He's just heard they defeated the mantis and have even reached the 50th floor of the dungeon. Gilbert scoffs that it sounds like an exaggeration, considering how many years it's taken them to get that far. In an instant, May has her dagger to his throat, asking if he dares to imply her master is a liar. Garth steps in, asking what they want, and Zubin explains they were just trying to be friendly, and that they should know there are people rooting for them. After all, someone has to prove that humans can compete with the other races, and it'd be great if they could even surpass them and knock them down a peg. As they leave, nearby members of other races comment on how humans always say the most foolish things. A dwarf bets that the entire story about defeating the giant mantis is a complete fabrication, claiming it's impossible for a human to cast a tactical class spell without an incantation. Light's group can clearly hear the cruel remarks from the other races, so Garth says the only thing they can do is prove their worth through their actions. Light agrees, so they soon head back into the dungeon to descend to the 50th floor once more. As they travel, they notice Hans's party is also in the dungeon, so Light decides to go and say hello since they haven't run into each other lately. Hans mentions the dungeon is a massive place, making it hard to run into acquaintances unless it's by pure chance. However, he says this is a good opportunity because Milla has something for him. A bit nervously, she steps forward and hands Light a small gift as a token of her gratitude. She explains it's a burn ointment, a recipe her grandmother taught her before she passed. It won't remove the scars, but she hopes it can at least help ease his pain. Light thanks her and graciously accepts, which makes Milla genuinely happy. Hans explains that his sister really wanted to repay his kindness, and this was what she came up with after much thought. Light is visibly moved by the gift and decides Milla deserves something in return. He secretly uses his ability to materialize a bracelet and gives it to her as a sign of his gratitude, telling her that her gift truly warmed his heart. Milla happily accepts the bracelet, promising to treasure it forever. After they say their goodbyes, May asks Light if it was really a good idea to give Milla that bracelet, revealing he just gifted her the wish-granting bracelet. In her opinion, it doesn't seem like a fair trade for a simple homemade ointment. Light replies that he just thought it was perfect for her, and Garth clarifies that the item can make small miracles happen if one wishes for them strongly enough. This is why, he explains, Light chose that specific bracelet for Milla, a gesture that was both thoughtful and gentlemanly. May hates to admit he's right, so Garth just laughs and tells her she should be less materialistic and more spiritual. When they reach the 50th floor, Light tells Garth and May to handle hunting the Yetis they need, while he uses a teleportation card to return to the abyss where the maids await him. After Lila serves him some tea, Light informs her that the operation is proceeding smoothly. It's been a nice change of pace, as he's even made some friends and has been able to see some of the good that's still left in the world. Besides that, he asks for an update on the status of their revenge operations, and Lila informs him that they are very close and everything will soon be in place. Light tells her he can always count on her, remarking that it seems he didn't even need to come back. Lila thanks him for his kind words, and Light tells them to keep up the good work, giving them free rein to use any and all resources they need. He also tells Lila that he wants her to remain in charge of managing the abyss, which she readily accepts. Next, he tells Kuro that she is to continue exploring the ancient forest. Nezuna, feeling left out, excitedly asks what her assignment will be, but Light hesitates, knowing she isn't exactly suited for carefully structured plans. So, he simply tells her that he needs her to protect everyone while he's away, as there's no telling when an overwhelmingly powerful enemy might appear. As innocent as ever, Nazuna eagerly accepts, declaring that as long as she's around, no one will get hurt. Lila asks if she's truly satisfied with that, and Nazuna replies that she can't fulfill her main mission until the preliminary preparations are complete. Lila tells him she's aware and that she'll get everything in order quickly and flawlessly, because Light deserves nothing less. Light comments that he can hardly wait, as he plans to savor every second of watching Sasha's miserable face, so he's eagerly anticipating the big day. Elsewhere, Gilbert and Zubin are talking on the third floor of the dungeon while the rest of their party sleeps. Zubin remarks that the third floor rarely looks so picturesque, as it's usually completely shrouded in fog. Gilbert agrees, saying it only looks like this once in a blue moon. With that said, Zubin decides to ask what his impression was of the black. He's heard that the masked man cast a tactical class spell without an incantation when they defeated the giant mantis. Gilbert replies that it has to be a lie, but Zubin reminds him that the witness who backed it up was a human girl. Gilbert clarifies that if it is true, then the black must be either a legendary knight or a reincarnated hero from ancient times. Zubin finally agrees, saying he hopes it's true because they need a champion to overthrow this rotten human-hating society. After their conversation, Zubin gets up and heads into the bushes to relieve himself, so Gilbert tells him to watch out for monsters. A short while later, Gilbert calls out to Zubin, telling him it's time to wake the other two for their watch shift. However, all he finds is Zubin's severed head on the ground as Minato complains about being kept waiting. Gilbert freezes, trying not to panic. He looks around and realizes all his comrades are already dead. They're camped in the middle of a swamp, so his men should have heard any enemy splashing as they approached, yet Gilbert's severed head lies on the ground with no signs of a struggle. Zubin deduces the killer must have used some kind of magic. Minato impatiently grinds his foot into Gilbert's head, but Zubin knows he stands no chance against the bloodthirsty elf. His only option is to escape and report this massacre to the Adventurers Guild. He quickly casts a spell to create a thick fog and flees, thinking Minato can't target him with magic without a line of sight. However, Minato closes the distance almost instantly and strikes him down. In that final moment of consciousness, Zubin realizes the elf made no sound because he was using a spell to float silently above the water. Suddenly, the sage Yanak appears and puts Zubin to sleep, reminding Minato that he had requested living humans, yet he went and slaughtered all but this one. Yanak explains that successful experiments are only achieved after numerous failures, which is why he requires more than a single human test subject. Minato casually promises to be more careful next time, but warns that any maggot who dares to defy him will be turned into mincemeat. Yanak coldly comments that even the most useless human trash can have value when it becomes raw material for his experiments, and that they will teach this scum the role they are destined to play in the grand order of the world. Sometime later, Mir storms back into the guild, demanding an immediate rank promotion for Light. The slightly flustered receptionist explains that while she understands Mir's frustration, they already made a special exception by promoting him directly from F rank to D rank just the other day. Mir scoffs, asking if that's the best they can do considering everything he's accomplished, but the receptionist reminds her of their established system. Unfazed, Mir argues that her master's greatness cannot be measured by their standards and that he deserves nothing less than S rank. The receptionist insists there's nothing she can do, as not enough time has passed since he registered, but she mentions that if he were to achieve another major feat, she might be able to pull some strings. Back at the inn, Light brings up a rumor about an adventurer killer on the loose. Although it might be a hoax, Elisa sees it as a perfect opportunity to rank up. But Mir points out that there's no information available as the suspect hasn't been identified. With that in mind, Elisa asks if Light could use his gift to pull a specialized card to help them track the killer. But Light reminds her that the gacha is completely random, doubting they'd be so lucky. Mir then suggests calling for reinforcements from the abyss, but Elisa dismisses that as a pointless effort. Light notes that this killer has only been targeting humans, so they can't simply let it slide. Just then, the three of them sense an approaching presence, and Light quickly dons his mask. Suddenly, a portal tears open before them, and to Light's shock, Mia falls out. He quickly catches her in his arms as the bracelet he'd given her shatters and falls to the floor. Visibly distressed in her sleep, Mia begins to murmur that she has to hurry and tell him what happened. Light uses magic to heal her body and decides to peer into her memories. He unleashes an RS rank hypnosis card, and the scene shifts to Mia's memories of the recent past, inside a dungeon. Some adventurers warn Helio and his party about the adventurer killer, noting that so far, all the victims have been human. Helio asks if they're sure it isn't a monster, but the adventurers explain that no monster can cast multiple spells with different attributes. Mia tells her brother they'd stand no chance if that's true, and the adventurers urge them to retreat and warn anyone who hasn't heard the news. Helio decides his group will leave immediately, saying they need to hurry as sunset is approaching. However, after walking for a while, he notices everyone is exhausted from the long journey that day. Night has already fallen, and they haven't even made it halfway, but Helio knows they can't risk camping out in the open. As they press on, they unfortunately run into Kaido and Anak. The siblings fail to recognize they are elves due to their concealing hoods. Mia innocently tells her brother that perhaps these two haven't heard the news yet. Helio informs them about the series of murders in the area by the adventurer killer, warning that it's dangerous for everyone, and they should consider leaving the dungeon like the others. Kaido quickly understands why the number of adventurers has suddenly dropped, and Anak thanks them for the information. And Anak comments that they should have put more effort into covering their tracks. Kaido replies that he never expected insects to react so quickly, and Anak admits that the Adventurers Guild is a more efficient machine than they gave it credit for. Utterly confused, Helio asks what they're talking about, but Anak simply complains about having to explain everything to humans. Kaido agrees as he unsheathes his sword, saying these worms are always as dumb as dirt. The moment he reveals his face, the adventurers freeze in fear, realizing he is the adventurer killer. Helio and the others immediately tell Mia to run, vowing to fight and buy her time. Kaido is easily irritated by this, finding it laughable that such vermin think they can stand against him, especially when they're so clearly outmatched. Completely enraged, Kaido swings his sword, opening a deep gash on Helio's chest, causing Mia to scream in horror. Jim and Ward immediately rush to defend their leader, but Kaido cuts them down just as easily. Mia is frozen in shock, but Ward manages to get back on his feet, telling her to run as far as she can. Hearing his desperate cry, Jim musters the courage to stand again. The two resolve to give their all to give Mia a chance to live, even if it means fighting a battle they are destined to lose. Anak tries to stop Kaido, but both Jim and Ward fall dead under his blade, making Mia scream again. With a sigh, Anak scolds him, reminding him that he can't use them for his experiments unless they're alive. But Kaido retorts that he already said he'd turn those worms into mincemeat if they dared to waste his time by fighting back. Besides, he clarifies, he left the girl alive. Anak concedes that female human mages are especially valuable, though the boys were also indispensable to him. Kaido approaches Mia, promising to be more careful next time, but asks if he can have a little fun with her first. Uninterested, Anak tells him to do as he pleases, explaining he's beyond such base desires as long as he keeps her alive. Trembling, Mia tells him to stay away, but Kaido doesn't understand why she's so scared. He tells her she's lucky that a future legendary hero like himself is willing to use her for his pleasure, so she should be jumping for joy. Mia is completely paralyzed with fear, but the sound of her brother's voice snaps her out of it. Against all odds, Helio manages to stand up, using the last of his strength to beg her to run. Anak is amazed by his tenacity, telling Kaido he must insist on capturing him alive, as he's a perfect specimen for his experiments. Helio knows he's practically dead already, but that doesn't matter. He must save Mia, no matter the cost. Despite his pain, he forces a gentle smile for her, asking her once more to run, to get out of there, and live a long life for all of them. Mia finally musters the courage to stand and run for her life, so Anak tells Kaido to hurry and capture her. Kaido is clearly irritated by his bossy attitude, but Anak also reminds him not to kill Helio. Kaido complains again, saying these worms are harder to catch than to kill. Helio begins to murmur, recalling Light's words that battles are about creativity and skill, so he has to use his head and make unexpected moves. Kaido has no idea what he's talking about, but Helio keeps repeating the lessons. Light had taught him and his friends that simply defending with a shield and attacking with a sword wasn't wrong, but it wasn't the best approach either. With those words echoing in his mind, Helio decides to do something brave. He throws his sword at Kaido as a distraction, and just as Kaido dodges, Helio transforms his shield into a powerful weapon and smashes it right into his face. Kaido falls backward, completely stunned, as it's the first time a human has ever laid a hand on him, let alone a mere child. Helio laughs down at him with a triumphant smirk. In an instant, Kaido's rage erupts, and without a second thought, he impales Helio with his sword. Anik is about to complain, but Kaido exclaims that no one gets away with striking his majestic face and vows to make him suffer a pain worse than death. Anik quickly stops him, telling him he must go after the escaped specimen because things will get complicated if outsiders find out what they've been doing. Kaido knows he can't argue with that, so he soon finds Mia and blocks her path with his swords. He tells her it seems she needs a lesson on how to behave in the presence of a future legendary hero. Mia freezes as Kaido explains that he can create multiple swords and control them at will, for he wields the Elven Kingdom's Phantom-class weapon, the legendary sword known as Grandiose. He creates several blades to prove his point, closing in on her and boasting that catching human worms is a simple task for him. Maya quickly gets back on her feet, knowing she can't give up and waste the precious time her brother and friends bought with their lives. She uses her power to create multiple ice swords, but Kaido shatters them effortlessly. Mia keeps running, but he catches up to her in an instant, telling her it's time to give up and enjoy the glory of pleasing a legendary hero. Despite the situation, Mia shows no fear this time, telling him he's no legendary hero, that title belongs to people who are as kind as they are strong, like Light. She calls him a bully who only preys on the weak, which seems to strike a nerve with Kaido, reminding him of the bitter comments he received in the past, people saying that being a bully was all he was good for, that it was why he was kicked out of the White Knights, and that he deserved it for hitting his level cap. Suddenly, Mia calls him a coward. Kaido completely loses it and attacks her with multiple swords. Though escape seems impossible, Mia knows she cannot die there. She must survive, no matter what. Her brother and friends sacrifice themselves to give her this chance, so she has to reach Light somehow and tell him what happened. This intense desire activates the power of the bracelet, and that's how Mia manages to open a portal and reach Light. After witnessing the events, Light clutches the broken bracelet in his hand. While Mia is still asleep, he quietly departs with Mir and Elisa. Meanwhile, Anik uses healing magic on Helio, unwilling to waste such a valuable specimen. Kaido suddenly appears, desperately searching for Mia, thinking she'd return to save her friends. Anik can't believe Kaido lost her, scoffing that it's ridiculous for a former member of the White Knights to be outsmarted by a mere child. Kaido explains that she simply vanished into thin air and there was no way of knowing she had a teleportation magic item. Anik retorts that it's impossible for a human to possess something so valuable, but Kaido insists it's true. This means they're in serious trouble. If she reaches the guild and tells them what happened, the news will spread to the Elven Kingdom, and sooner or later, they'll find out Kaido and Anak stole Grandiose. Kaido's face contorts with fear at the thought, knowing the White Knights and their infernal captain will come after them. Anak reminds him that the captain is over level 3000, and all the knights under his command are in the 2000s, armed with weapons on par with Grandiose. Kaido starts to throw a tantrum, but Anak tells him he just needs to complete his research, and then Kaido will be able to break his level cap, solving all their problems. This instantly restores Kaido's confidence, and Anak suggests they find another place to finish their research. Just then, Light's voice cuts in, telling them they aren't going anywhere. Kaido recognizes him immediately, baffled how anyone could sneak up on a level 1500 like himself. Light ignores them for a moment to gently close Jim and Ward's eyes. Mir informs him that Helio is still alive, and his wounds have been treated, albeit carelessly. Anak didn't even notice when Helio's body was taken from his sight, leaving him as confused as Kaido. Light uses magic to fully heal Helio, wondering why anyone would do this. These kids stood firm in a world of terrible discrimination, working their hardest to make an honest living while supporting Mia's dreams. They didn't deserve any of this. Light knows it's too late to change anything, but he muses that under different circumstances, they all could have been great friends. He declares that he will make the two elves pay, but Anak counters that he's mistaken. After all, Anak was the one who healed Helio and saved him from death, so they can. Anak is shocked to see this, but Kaido desperately continues trying to strike him. Light barely moves as he blocks every single attack with his staff, ignoring all of Kaido's insults. Anik watches in disbelief, saying it's impossible for a human, let alone a mere child, to do something like that. Elisa watches the fight, completely unfazed, while Mir comments that the elf can do nothing but swing his sword in a rage. Already bored, Light sighs and knocks Kaido's sword with his staff, making him lose his balance. He remarks on how pathetic Kaido is and then punches him in the stomach, leaving him breathless on the ground. Anik panics as Kaido coughs, trying to recover. Light tells him he'd better try harder, or he might accidentally kill him. As Kaido struggles to his feet, he declares that no insignificant human has the right to mock him. Without hesitation, he uses Grandiose, launching several blades into the air, ready to strike. Kaido tells Light to cry and tremble, claiming this is the power of a Phantom-class weapon, the legendary Grandiose, and that Light will regret ever crossing him. Light swiftly dodges several attacks and admits it's a surprising amount of power, as the blades crash into the ground causing explosions and fire. Mir notes that all the blades have been enchanted with magic, and Elisa adds that each seems to have a different attribute. Still, they both know it's no problem for their master, so they simply watch from a distance as Light dodges the blades, admitting the attack has force, but not nearly enough. Kaido suddenly appears behind him, but Light easily blocks his sword with his staff once again. Anik can only watch the whole fight in horror. Kaido had summoned a decoy blade to sneak up on him, and yet the boy still parried the attack. He can't understand how a human could exist who can go toe-to-toe with an elf wielding a Phantom-class weapon. Kaido suddenly calls him a cheater, saying that although Light is dressed like a mage, it's clear he's actually a warrior. As he throws another tantrum, Light replies that he is indeed a mage, but Kaido insists that no mage could fight on equal footing with him. Light can't blame him for being confused, as he truly is one of a kind, and Mir chimes in that he is an unlimited card mage. Light decides to conjure several ice swords in the sky, each one completely destroying Kaido's blades. The sight is utterly surreal for Anik, who can't believe Light is using Ice Sword to eliminate Grandiose's duplicates one by one, a feat that would require magical power far superior to any elven mage. This whole scenario should be impossible. Kaido continues to attack him desperately with Grandiose, but Light uses Ice Sword as a barrier and asks if he's done with his tantrum. Despite the clear power difference, Kaido only grows more enraged with each passing second, claiming that the Master of Old received Grandiose as a gift from the heavens, making it a sacred sword that surpasses all others. Light immediately freezes and asks if he knows the Master. Kaido just laughs, saying of course he does, because he was born with the blood of a master in his veins, which is why they call him the Sub-Master. He proudly proclaims himself to be far superior to them in every way, right down to his genes. After processing this, Light wastes no time, telling Gold and Mumu there's been a change of plans. They're now taking these guys to the abyss, as he intends to extract all the information they have directly from their brains. Gold and Mumu immediately obey his command and get into a fighting stance, but Yannick is not intimidated at all. He clarifies that he is merely a scientist, so battles aren't his forte, and that there's only one thing he can do in this situation. Yannick simply snaps his fingers, and two grotesque figures grow behind him in a matter of seconds. He proudly presents the fruits of his labor, hybrids of humans and monsters. He explains that the one on his left was fused with a special type of rock lizard that lives on the Dark Elf Islands, and the one on his right was fused with a troll they collected near the dungeon. Light's expression changes to shock as he realizes he recognizes the face of one of the monsters. It's Zuleban, the adventurer he met before. Gold and Mumu notice it too, with Gold commenting on how inhumane it is. But Yannick simply calls it incredible, explaining that fusing different species into these hybrid forms is the key to overcoming natural growth limits. However, they require multiple humans to stabilize, which is really the only problem. Yannick states his goal is to create an unstoppable, unparalleled force, which means he needs many more specimens. Light's patience wears thin as he listens to Yannick insist that there is no duty more sublime and noble than his, because he is blessed and guided by heaven itself. Tired of his nonsense, Light bluntly tells him to shut up. Yannick retorts that his genius is too much for such an insignificant human brain to comprehend. Light remains calm and simply asks Mumu and Gold to release those poor people from their misery. also telling them not to let Yannick escape because he has many questions for him. They immediately get on guard, and Yannick, knowing they've left him no other choice, says he'll have to educate them in a way their weak minds can understand. Through a practical demonstration. With just a wave of his hands, he sends his monstrous hybrids to attack, but Gold and Mumu easily knock them down. However, Yannick smirks and warns them it's too soon to declare victory. The hybrids quickly get back up, and Yannick tells them they'll have to do much better than that to kill his creations. The monsters immediately lunge to strike, and as Light tries to speak, Okido attacks him, reminding him that he's his opponent and can't get distracted. Light dodges the high-speed attacks while Mumu tries to take down one of the hybrids with multiple slashes. After a few seconds of trying without success, she backs away and admits this is going to be tricky. Gold asks her where her usual confidence went, and Mumu retorts that she could ask him the same thing, but Gold assures her he's just warming up. Just as the monster reaches them, Gold attempts to split it in half with his sword and then blocks a blow with his shield. Yannick simply mocks them, calling them brainless idiots and saying there's nothing they can do, so they should just admit defeat, promising he'll be especially delicate when he experiments on their bodies. Mumu is disgusted, and Gold says he doesn't want these poor people to suffer any longer than necessary. For once, she agrees, and they both use their special abilities to give them a dignified rest. Mumu uses certain death, and Gold uses judgment flare, but Yannick just laughs and reminds them that his hybrids are unstoppable, so they can't be killed no matter what they do. Yannick stops talking immediately when he notices his hybrids are no longer moving or regenerating. He rushes over to the bodies, now engulfed in eternal flames, wondering what's happening, and starts to panic, saying something like this can't be happening. But Mumu simply kicks him in the groin and tells him that's enough. He instantly collapses, foaming at the mouth, and Gold tells her she might have gone a bit too far. Mumu disagrees, saying with disgust that now she'll have to buy a new pair of boots. Meanwhile, Light is still toying with Kaido, effortlessly dodging all of his desperate attacks. Light reminds him that he was the one who insisted on fighting, so he doesn't understand his frustration. Looking up at Light's face completely enrages Kaido, who immediately gets to his feet and raises Grandiose, vowing to pulverize him into nothing. The sword begins to glow with immense power, and Kaido warns him to be afraid, as this is the ultimate form of Grandiose. Light dodges the attack with ease, quickly understanding that Kaido has enchanted the blade with multiple types of magic. Kaido gets frustrated and tries to strike him repeatedly, but Light keeps dodging every move. He notes that the blade's size and speed increase as it stretches and bends uncontrollably, becoming less like a sword and more like a magic-powered whip, but it's still nothing he can't handle. He admits it's a flashy technique, but Mumu assures him it's nothing compared to Light's. Kaido tries to finish him quickly, but Light even looks bored midair as he effortlessly dodges. He says it's an interesting technique, but all flash and no substance, like Greninja's final attack in the Kalos League. The only thing getting hurt in this battle is Kaido's pride, who desperately begs him to stop dodging his attacks, claiming he'd be mincemeat if the sword hit him. Hearing this, Light decides to indulge him and finally stops, opening his arms for the attack. Kaito's fury ignites as he charges, telling him he'll regret his arrogance. He strikes him head-on with the full force of Grandiose, but his victorious expression quickly vanishes when he realizes Light's shoulder has simply stopped his blade. Light smirks and tells him to keep going if he wants, so Kaido panics and strikes him again and again in desperation, wondering how he's still alive against the legendary Holy Sword. As if that wasn't enough, Light simply shatters the blade with his bare hand, and both Gold and Mumu know it's all over. As Kaido tries to process what just happened, Light punches him in the gut, and then kicks him in the face. Kaido panics at the sight of so much blood coming from his nose, but Light tells him he still has questions for him, so he won't kill him just yet, at least not until he's suffered enough to beg for death. Right after he says those words, Kaido does something unexpected. He kneels and desperately begs for his life, asking for forgiveness and saying he doesn't want to die. He explains that he comes from the Elven Kingdom and was once next in line to become captain of the White Knights, so he'll tell him everything he needs to know and even give him Grandiose. Light asks if he's really just giving up after all that hype about being a legendary hero. He doesn't understand why he's no longer fighting, mockingly asking what happened to never giving up and fighting through adversity. No matter how adverse the circumstances. That's what a true hero does, just like how Helio, Jim, and Woody charged at him to protect Mia, even knowing they stood no chance. Light throws Grandiose at Kaido, telling him he'll give him another chance. He wants him to fight, and if he manages to even scratch him, he'll let him go. Light finally removes his mask, telling him to show what a future legendary hero is capable of, wanting him to push past his limits and show what he's truly made of. Despite this fake second chance, Kaido simply backs away, crawling in horror and trying to escape immediately, saying it's impossible, as he desperately tries to flee this nightmare. Light unleashes a solar ray card and shoots one of Kaido's legs, causing him to fall instantly. As he writhes in pain on the ground, Light approaches him and says Mia was right, because he's no legendary hero, just a gutless coward who runs away. After he's done with Kaido, Light returns to the bodies of Jim and Woody, saying he'll bury them in the abyss since this area is infested with monsters. He wants them to rest in peace, knowing that they will ensure he and Mia survive. Kaido and Yannick remain on the ground, not even daring to try and get up, but Yannick asks where they are going now. Mumu steps on his head, warning him that nobody said he could talk. Light tells them they're coming with them because he has many questions for them both. Kaido keeps apologizing nervously and asks for mercy, but Light simply regrets not having been harder on them back when they first met, using teleportation to take them to the abyss, leaving both Kaido and Yannick completely confused and terrified. Light informs them that they are now in the deepest part of the abyss, because this is where they live. Kaido can't believe he lives in the world's most challenging dungeon, and Yannick calls it ridiculous, saying there's no way to get there from where they were. Mumu stomps on him again, asking if he dares to imply that Light is a liar. As she crushes him over and over, Ina and the other girls appear to welcome Light back. She asks what these strange creatures he brought with him are. Light explains they're a pair of criminals who conducted horrible experiments with humans that left many people dead. However, it turns out they know something about the Master, so he brought them here for interrogation. The atmosphere in the room immediately turns hostile as soon as the girls hear this. May asks Light to just say the word and she'll make them feel enough pain to regret being born. Eru says she'll gladly use every forbidden technique in her arsenal to force those scumbags to reveal all the information inside their pathetic minds. Yuki accuses them of sinning against her infallible Lord and Master, and claims they must suffer a lifetime of agony and despair to redeem themselves. Asuna agrees, saying they're about to get a good dose of pain for causing trouble for their master, and she has no intention of forgiving them. Kaido watches them from the floor and wonders who they are, because they're absolutely terrifying. Yannick is completely horrified too, knowing that all of them are far beyond their level and he can't even understand how such humans can exist. Light clarifies that no one can kill them until he has learned everything, what they know, so they must control themselves. The girls quickly accept his orders, so Light tells Gold he wants him to heal Helio, also asking Mumu to go with him as they are going to lay Jim and Woody to rest. Before they can leave, Yannick suddenly speaks up, desperately claiming he's a victim here, but Kaito denies it, insisting Yannick was the one pulling the strings. Light cuts them off, reminding them how they both paraded around like gods, crushing people they called worms, and that some of those people must have begged for mercy too, but they did nothing, so now they will receive the exact same treatment. A while later, Light returns to the inn just in time to see Mia waking up. He shows her Helio sleeping peacefully in the other bed and explains they were in time to heal him with magic before it was too late, so he's going to be fine. Mia asks about Jim and Woody, but Light can only hand her a lock of their hair, saying it was all they could recover. Holding the only thing left of her friends, Mia immediately begins to cry, but still manages to thank Light in a trembling voice. Light leaves the room to give her some space, starting to wonder if this is the consequence of leveling up solely for the sake of revenge, hating that he can't get the horrible sound of her sobbing out of his mind. The next day, he goes to the guild to provide information on the adventurer killer, and the receptionist tells him they can promote him directly to C rank. Light asks if that's okay, as he thought they needed to capture the killer to complete the quest. She clarifies it's no problem, since he brought back valuable information that an elf and a dark elf were behind the string of murders, and even better, he saved 2 potential victims. Light thanks her for the promotion, and then returns to the inn to speak with Mia and Helio, wanting to know if they've made a decision. Helio tells him they'll be leaving in the morning, but that they're truly grateful, as in the short time they've known him, he's done so much for them. Mia agrees, saying she can't thank him enough for everything. Light asks what they'll do now, and Helio replies that they're quitting being adventurers and returning to their hometown. Light mentions it's a shame, as he's sure they could find other adventurers to party with. Mia confesses that part of her is terrified to continue after what happened, but it was also her friends who gave her the courage to become an adventurer and go into the dungeon in the first place. Helio agrees, saying it doesn't feel right to form a new party without Jim and Woody, and besides, he wants to take what's left of them back home where they belong. Light understands completely but still asks what they'll do about the Magic Academy. Mia tells him she's going to study on her own instead, because she doesn't want to be a burden the next time they meet, so she'll dedicate everything she has to becoming a real mage. She shyly asks if they'll really have a chance to see each other again, and Light confirms it with a smile, saying he's looking forward to that day. She smiles happily and tells him she'll hold him to it, so it's a promise. After saying their goodbyes, Light watches them depart from the window, but Gold tells him not to worry, saying those two are especially diligent and pure of heart, so they'll surely adapt to their new lives in the blink of an eye. Mumu agrees, saying it will be great to see them again in the future. Light smiles and agrees, knowing that when the day comes that he can share the whole truth, he'll take them with him to visit the graves of Jim and Woody. Gold and Mumu stay at the inn, while Light decides to return to the abyss to see the results of the investigation. Eru hands him the documentation, informing him that she used her forbidden magic to delve into every corner of their minds. They took all this information and confirmed it through various interrogation methods, which revealed no inconsistencies. The term submaster, like Kaido, is a general term for those who have a blood relationship with the master, and they are known for leveling up with relative ease. May mentions there seems to be a belief that the world could come to an end if the master isn't kept in check. Light doesn't quite understand that part, wondering if that's even possible when there's only one master. Eru tells him that this detail came from a conversation Kaido once had with the captain of the White Knights, but his memory was quite fragmented, making it difficult to draw conclusions, so they couldn't uncover a more solid lead. After all that, Light says there's no point in investigating further in that case, which means their only lead is the captain of the White Knights. He asks about the condition of Kaido and Yanok, and Eru snaps her fingers to open a portal and show him. Light decides it's time to get rid of them, so he prepares a card called Banquet of the Dead. In a matter of seconds, various creatures begin to devour Kaido and Yanok alive, giving them the terrible and painful death they deserve. Once it's over, Eru closes the portal and informs him that all the necessary preparations have been made and that they can initiate the revenge plan against Sasha the elf at any time. It will begin with the capture of the White Knights, because apparently all its members are submasters. And their vice-captain is also engaged to Sasha, which means he could be useful as a hostage. Light praises their diligence and gives the order to set the plan in motion immediately. Meanwhile, we see Sasha and her fiancé Michael laughing as she tells him how pathetic the look on Light's face was after she shot him in the leg with an arrow. The two talk about how much they enjoy it when humans beg for their lives with the most horribly pitiful expressions right before they kill them. Sasha is completely smitten and agrees with everything her fiancé says, and Michael tells her how happy he is to have met her. As she happily enjoys her time by his side, Light sets everything in motion, seeing that their long-awaited reunion is near. Her face was quite euphoric when she betrayed him, but Light wonders how much Sasha's face will sink into despair when she begs him not to kill her. Sometime later, Sasha is seen riding in a carriage, still basking in the joy of her recent date with Michael, but as she internally scoffs at the uselessness of humans, she suddenly catches a glimpse of Light disappearing into a dark alleyway, which sends her into an immediate panic as she jumps out of the carriage to chase him, desperately trying to convince herself that her eyes are deceiving her because there is no way he could have survived the abyss. After sprinting to a dead end with nowhere for anyone to hide, she momentarily feels relieved thinking it was a hallucination, but that relief shatters when she turns around to find a note on the wall signed by Light, commanding her to meet him at the tower, causing Sasha to scream in terror as she realizes that her entire new life, her adoption by account, her reward money, and her engagement to Michael was built on the lie of killing Light, and now he has returned to ruin everything. High above on a nearby rooftop, Light and his subordinate observe her mental breakdown, and while Light declares that the moment has finally arrived, his companion requests permission to handle Sasha personally, promising to etch deep pain and suffering into her being as punishment for betraying, abusing, and ridiculing their master. Meanwhile, in another location, two elf children named Nia and Kia are gleefully playing a cruel game with a bound human slave, betting on who will kill him first by throwing knives, while nearby, Sharpheart, a member of the White Knights, toys with a human woman named Socha, enjoying her skin while ignoring her distress caused by the slave's agonized screams. Sharpheart chats with Captain Hardy about the self-proclaimed hero Kaido, who failed to steal a legendary sword and was beaten by a human, complaining that the higher-ups might force them to clean up Kaido's mess, and although Musty insists they must take responsibility, Sharpheart dismisses him as too uptight. However, the conversation is interrupted when the children pierce the slave's ear, prompting Hardy to order them to kill the human immediately because the noise is ruining the mood. To which Musty coldly adds that for the White Knights, humans are merely weak creatures suitable only as temporary pets. However, ultimately, Must argues that what humans truly need is the blessing of mercy delivered by their impeccable blades, explaining that for such weak creatures, existence is nothing but pitiful suffering, so granting them a swift and beautiful death is actually an act of kindness. Sharpheart mocks him as a prude and warns that his mindset will eventually backfire. But before the argument can escalate, Captain Hardy paralyzes everyone with a single word, emitting an aura so intense that even a passing bird drops dead in midair. And with everyone terrified, he orders Nia and Kia to cease their torture because it dulls their battlefield instincts, while also telling Musty to abandon his moralizing. Sharpheart immediately understands the assignment and explodes the slave's head with a casual wave of his hand to end the distraction. And while the children dispose of the body, he feigns gentleness to send a terrified Socha back to her room, promising to join her later. Once she is gone, Hardy warns him against diluting their noble bloodline, noting that the ancient master blood found in the White Knights is rare and hasn't appeared in millennia. But Sharpheart assures him he has no intention of creating half-breeds. He simply revels in the hilarity of watching human women get their hopes up before he inevitably betrays and kills them for the thrill. Hardy then prepares to leave, stating that royal orders regarding the cleanup of the former member Kaido's mess are imminent, and they must brutally restore the order's reputation to ensure no one dares tarnish their queen's name again, while elsewhere that night, the tranquility of the city is shattered when a massive magic circle created by El appears in the sky, instantly erecting a colossal tower that interrupts Sasha's sleep. With the construction complete, El declares that the stage is set, and Sasha, watching the colossal tower from her balcony, realizes with dread that Light is waiting for her there. Meanwhile, the sudden appearance of the tower has caused high-level monsters to block the roads, leading to incidents like an elf driver abandoning a carriage of enslaved human children in terror, which forces the kingdom to issue high-reward quests for information that few dare to accept. Light is pleased by the commotion, but while waiting to register, he and Namumu are accosted by two arrogant high-level elves who try to solicit Namumu, claiming she is too high quality for a human party. However, after Namumu asserts her loyalty solely to Light, Light swiftly ends the confrontation by casting a silent thunder arrow that shatters the ground, revealing their identity as the formidable Black Multi-Party and causing the awestruck crowd to retreat. As Gold notes that their plan to boost their reputation is working perfectly, the scene shifts to the wilderness where a group of heartless elves forces an exhausted human girl to act as monster bait, rationalizing that she is cheaper than their safety, only for their plan to backfire instantly when a massive beast looms over them, dripping saliva onto the unsuspecting elf just before attacking. The remaining two elves stand paralyzed with shock as they watch their companion get gruesomely devoured, and it isn't long before they suffer the same grisly fate, leaving the human girl trembling in hopeless terror until the monster inexplicably leaves her be. Just as she thinks her nightmare is continuing with the arrival of a group of intimidating men who claim to have found great loot, the leader surprisingly pours a potion over her to heal her wounds, insisting that they cannot allow her to remain in such a disheveled state. And they proceed to give her shoes, a walking stick, and water, treating her with unexpected care before sending a message bird to their superior, Aoyuki, to report another rescue. Meanwhile, at the tower, El approaches Aoyuki to check on the operation, noting that this is Aoyuki's first time controlling multiple monsters on the surface simultaneously. And while Aoyuki responds with her usual carefree feline sounds, El anxiously wonders if they are truly executing Light's orders correctly, speculating that this entire situation might be a test of their moral standards and emotional intelligence designed by their master. El considers warning the others to avoid making any fatal errors, but Aoyuki suddenly breaks her silence to tell her not to worry, sparking a philosophical debate, where El argues they must understand Light's intentions to serve him best, while Aoyuki retorts that they only need to be exactly what he expects to live, fight, worship, and die for him, and that anything beyond total utility is irrelevant. L dismisses Aoyuki as being content with being a mere pet, but Aoyuki counters that seeing L attempt to comprehend the will of their god makes her want to kill her, causing the atmosphere to turn deadly as L darkens and questions if Aoyuki stands a chance against her, to which Aoyuki coldly suggests they conduct an empirical study on what happens when two beings of their level clash and threatens to end her right there. Aoyuki threatens to end L right then and there if she refuses to yield to Light's desires. But just before their clash can begin, Aoyuki's subordinates interrupt to report that the delivery is complete and the human girl is safely with the other children, prompting the girl to express her gratitude while Elle admits her worries were unjustified and departs, satisfied that the conversation gave her a profitable glimpse into her comrade's true mindset. That night, Sasha agonizes over Light's invitation in her room, realizing that the level 100 monsters surrounding the tower make it impossible to reach alone. Yet knowing she cannot ask the White Knights for help without revealing that Light survived. Despite this dilemma, she resolves to reach the tower at any cost to deliver the final blow that will seal Light's fate forever. The following day, the Elven Council convenes to discuss the mysterious tower, where the Chancellor proposes immediately deploying the White Knights to crush the unknown threat. But Captain Hardy retorts by questioning the Chancellor's sanity, arguing that using his elite forces without intelligence is like using a sacred sword to dig a hole, as even the sharpest blade is useless if it cannot hit its mark. As the tension between the reformist and conservative factions mounts, Queen Leaf intervenes to end the argument, siding with Hardy by ordering an increase in reward money to gather information first rather than rushing into battle. And once the meeting concludes and the others depart, Hardy thanks Leaf for rejecting the Chancellor's foolish plan, to which the Queen responds with maternal affection, revealing that Hardy is her son and assuring him that she would never put him in unnecessary danger. Hardy acknowledges that the Chancellor is merely biding his time to abolish the monarchy, yet Queen Leaf remains unbothered, asserting that no political rival poses a threat so long as her courageous son stands as her protector. Instead, her true concern lies with the mysterious tower, fearing it might be the first domino in a chain of events that could topple their empire. She reasons that while the Archdemon will inevitably fall to the might of the Eight Nations Alliance, that victory will give rise to a hero, an entity exclusive to the human race. And since there is a high probability this hero will possess the powers of a master, they must be prepared to either win him over or eliminate him entirely. Sometime later, as Light strolls through the market accompanied by Gold and Namumu, his voice catches Sasha's attention, prompting her to confront the group immediately. Although Namumu and Gold instinctively prepare to defend their master, Light orders them to stand down. Sasha demands to see the face beneath the disguise, and when Light politely declines by claiming the mask hides gruesome burns, she dismisses his excuse with cold indifference and slaps him across the face, knocking the mask away to reveal his identity. Flashing back a few minutes, Sasha is being escorted by a pair of level 300 elves, and though she knows they have a decent reputation as adventurers, she's not entirely convinced of their usefulness until, while walking through the market, she hears Light's voice, and the color instantly drains from her face. Sasha doesn't hesitate to confront him, and while Light knew there was a chance of running into her, he didn't expect it to happen so soon. For 3 long years, he hasn't forgotten for a single second how she betrayed, belittled, and tormented him with that smug, grating voice. Still, he knows his moment hasn't come yet, as he has waited all this time to create the perfect time and place to deal with trash like her, so to achieve his ultimate revenge, he must remain composed for now, even as she slaps him, knocking his mask away. To Sasha's shock and disgust, when Light's mask falls, his face reveals a horrific burn mark, just as he had claimed, causing her to recoil in absolute revulsion as she demands he immediately cover his hideous face. Light simply retrieves his mask as she walks away, utterly disgusted and remarking that he'd be better off dead with a face like that. May contains her fury, but Light seems satisfied, explaining that the illusory burn scars he created using the jester's mask worked like a charm, and he thanks his companions for not intervening. The group ventures into the forest, only to be followed by the same pair of elves, who are now seeking revenge. Light calmly warns them to stop their pursuit unless they wish to die, which only enrages them further. Light picks up the pace, leading them to a rendezvous point, but finds no one waiting there. Surprisingly, the 2 elves manage to catch up, boasting that he can't escape them. Light admits there's some bite to their bark, as he truly thought they would have given up. May mentions it's a shame they don't apply their talents to something more worthwhile, while another companion adds that using their gifts in such a petty manner has ironically led them to their own demise. The elves just laugh, claiming that Light's party are the only ones who will die today, and that being killed by them is a true honor they should be grateful for. Light sighs, knowing he has no choice but to call on Mera to take care of them. At first, no one appears, and the elves merely scoff, saying he can't get out of this with a simple bluff. One of them tells him he never should have messed with them because now they're going to put him 6 feet under, while the other clarifies that it's not too late for him to beg for his life. Of course, if he grovels just enough, they might just let him go. But just as the elf says that, Mera materializes right behind them, a malevolent grin spreading across her face as she remarks that their offer is a two-way street. After all, they sealed their own fate the moment they hurled those disgusting insults at her beloved master. And now, they will pay for it with their lives. The two elves are frozen in utter shock, completely unable to process what is happening, and they barely have a moment to react before Mera begins to mercilessly devour them, declaring that she couldn't care less how much they plead. Even May is visibly disturbed watching Mera swallow them whole, only to spit out their swords once she's finished. Light apologizes for the trouble, saying he hates to waste her time, but Mera just laughs it off, telling him not to mention it because even if they tasted like garbage, she would gladly devour 1,000 more of them for his sake. Bones, blood, and all. One of his companions remarks that while he acknowledges she's a valuable team member, her intensity definitely gives even him the creeps, to which May can only agree, though she's annoyed to admit it. Mera just laughs, clarifying that they are all friends here, so there's nothing to fear, she won't eat them. Just then, Iceheart, another team member, appears and agrees with Mera, stating that no one among them would ever consider Light's orders a waste of time, as their sole purpose in life is to serve him to the best of their ability. Susu, another member, nods in agreement, and her sentient weapon chimes in, concurring with Iceheart's words. Finally, Jack also appears, telling Light he can always count on him to have his back. Iceheart apologizes for their late arrival, explaining that she, Susu, Mera, and Jack are now officially reporting for duty. Light greets them with a smile, apologizing for burdening them with the task of being his escort, but Iceheart dismisses his apology, explaining that flying wasn't an option with so many adventurers around who might spot them. Light thanks them and asks them to take the lead. Iceheart then prompts Susu to speak now that their master is with them, but Susu merely nods silently again, not uttering a single word. Her weapon, Lack, speaks for her once more, apologizing for Susu's silence. Light reassures them it's fine, as he already knows her personality and doesn't want her to strain herself. As the full team finally begins to move through the forest, a companion mentions his surprise that Jack even bothered to join them, to which Jack clarifies that he has to abide by the bro code and couldn't just stand by while Light was out there working his tail off. Besides, he would never leave his buddy Light hanging. The casual remark causes him to freeze up instantly as all the girls glare at him with murderous intent. After all, no one speaks to their Light that way. Sensing the immediate hostility, Jack asks what's with the death glares, wondering if his little nickname for Light really bothers them that much, and he reminds the ladies that they're all on the same team, so there's no need for such formal titles. The girls remain on the defensive, so Jack presses on, telling them that their insistence on maintaining strict etiquette is only putting Light on a lonely pedestal, and if that's what they want for him, they'll have to settle it with their fists right now. Light immediately intervenes, telling Jack to back down since he can't just pick a fight with everyone, and he asks the same of the girls, reminding them that he and Jack have an understanding, so they need to stay calm. The girls have no choice but to agree, though it does little to clear the tense atmosphere in the group. Setting that aside, Light decides to talk to Iceheart, remarking that it's been a while since he's seen her fully equipped with her gauntlets, as he's used to only seeing her in a maid outfit back in the abyss. Iceheart explains, she's been learning the finer points of the maid's code under May, and it's been so long that even she feels strange wearing her armor now, which leads to her and Mera getting into a silly argument that thankfully helps lighten the mood. Meanwhile, another companion manages to improve Jack's mood by discussing training, while on the other side, Lack is the only one talking to Susu, warning her to show Light the proper respect or else Mera will gobble her up. Light knows Susu suffers from extreme shyness, making her sentient weapon the only one she can truly converse with. Watching them, Light asks May if Susu is a girl, as her profile listed her as androgynous. May, clearly having no idea what that means, confirms Susu is a girl and figures androgynous must be some kind of special skill. Light just makes a mental note to ask Ellie about it later, still unsure. When they finally arrive at the tower, Ellie, Nazuna, and Ayuki greet them excitedly, and Light removes his disguise. Ellie leads them inside the massive structure, explaining that while nothing is activated yet, the interior is fully furnished with her magical enchantments and technology she rebuilt by analyzing the Abyss's dungeon core, making it completely impenetrable to any external interference, be it magical or physical, so he can rest easy here. Ellie then introduces Light to a giant beast, casually explaining that it's one of her pets. She explains the beast is a pet she summoned specifically to help execute the plan, further revealing that the top floor of the tower has been converted into a grand wedding hall to host the main event. The group then teleports to the area, where a throne awaits Light, and everyone kneels before him as he takes his seat. Ellie takes the opportunity to brief him on the details of Operation Vengeance on Sasha, explaining that while May provided the foundation for the plan to congratulate Sasha on her royal wedding by serving her a dish of revenge, ice cold she added a few unique touches of her own. Since the White Knights are renowned as the Elven Kingdom's strongest warriors, she's arranged a series of battles against them to test their own forces. Once the battles are over, the White Knights will be captured. A move designed to weaken the Elven Kingdom enough for them to bend it to their will and extract any information they possess regarding the Master, while also allowing them to assess the military strength of neighboring countries. To that end, this tower will serve as their base of operations. Ellie then summons a shadow duplicate of Light in his disguise, explaining that while the operation is underway, this double will handle the task of raising the Black Motley's guild rank, allowing the real Light to wait comfortably and observe everything unfold until the main event kicks off. Light smiles, thanking her for her thoroughness and remarking that he can always count on her to have all the bases covered. Honored by his praise, Ellie mentions that Ayuki's beasts are luring Sasha towards them as they speak, and once she and her guests arrive, they will be greeted by her pet dragon. Upon seeing the monstrous dragon, Sasha immediately flees, knowing she's powerless and that only the White Knights stand a chance. Ellie shows Light the footage of Sasha's panicked retreat, assuring him she won't be back until she's fetched the White Knights, which will pit the Abyss's strongest warriors against the Elven Kingdom's strongest in a battle she guarantees will serve as the perfect prelude for him. Soon after, Sasha meets with the Elven Council, informing them that numerous snake-tailed creatures are guarding the tower's perimeter, believing them to be the reason other monsters were forced out of the ancient forest, and to make matters worse, a dragon has taken up residence there. None of the elves can believe a dragon has made its nest in the tower, as the presence of such a powerful creature could spell the end of their very kingdom. But Sasha desperately insists she's telling the truth, claiming she investigated the matter herself out of deep concern for her people. The Chancellor then mentions that a similar report had, in fact, already arrived from the Black Motley, the same guild that exposed the heinous crimes of its former member. He masterfully frames Sasha's actions as heroic, stating that out of love for her fellow elves, she braved the forest's dangers to gather crucial intelligence. Now, publicly pressured, Captain Hardy has no choice but to relent, declaring he will lead his White Knights to slay the dragon and solve the mystery of the tower once and for all. Of course, Sasha cannot allow them to discover the truth about Light, so, after the meeting, she petitions the Chancellor to join the dragon-slaying mission. He reassures her, revealing he had planned for her to go all along, praising her brave actions, but adding a condition. She must borrow a special item from her father's collection, as someone of her level would otherwise be nothing but a hindrance to the White Knights. Knowing exactly what he means, Sasha goes to her father to ask for the favor. The next day, she meets with the White Knights, where Hardy briefs them to follow Sasha's lead to the tower. Charjade immediately questions her readiness, warning her not to get cold feet, but Sasha confidently tells them to trust her, assuring them she can guide them safely. Hardy defends her, reminding them she's level 500 and that he will protect her if anything goes wrong. Charjade has no choice but to accept, though Mia and Kia immediately start gossiping that the Chancellor himself ordered Sasha to join and that she even borrowed an item from her family's treasury, all due to her political connections. Overhearing them, Charjade sighs, wishing they wouldn't drag their political baggage into field missions. As they enter the forest, word reaches Light that everything is proceeding according to plan, and he asks how Sasha is performing. Ellie provides a close-up of Sasha, confirming she is working diligently, and praises how smoothly everything is proceeding, noting that her master is never disappointed. Light's hand trembles uncontrollably, unable to contain his sheer excitement as he eagerly anticipates the twisted expression that will soon contort Sasha's face. As the nights advance, Charjade's skepticism about their path is quickly dismissed by Sasha's confidence, pointing to markers she left behind, but in her haste, she trips, only to be swiftly caught by Hardy, whose gentle warning earns him a smitten look from Sasha, much to Charjade's disgust at their fairy tale romance. Upon reaching the tower, Ayuki unleashes her beasts, and Hardy overrules Charjade's suggestion for a frontal assault, insisting their priority is the dragon and they should wait for the hired adventurers to create a diversion. Right on cue, two distant explosions draw the beasts away, clearing the path for the group to storm the tower. As they enter, Hardy casts his signature spell, Silence, enveloping the group in a mentally taxing barrier of absolute quiet that instantly shows Sasha why he earned the moniker, Hardy the Silent. Convinced her plan is unfolding perfectly, Sasha marches forward to find and eliminate Light, blissfully unaware that she is the one walking directly into a meticulously laid trap. Back in the command center, Ellie informs Light that the time has finally come for him to enjoy the show. Impressed by her unwavering confidence, Light agrees, likening the impending clash to an exquisite appetizer before the main course as he leans back to watch the events unfold on the live feed. He watches as the White Knights confidently charge into the tower, shrouded by Hardy's silence spell and certain that their stealth is absolute, but none of them see it coming as they step onto a hidden magic circle that activates in an instant. In a flash, the entire squad is scattered, each member teleported to a different, isolated section of the massive tower. Charjade finds himself alone, instantly realizing they've sprung a teleportation trap, while Hardy, who was teleported alongside Sasha, understands his forces have been completely divided in a perfectly executed ambush. Meanwhile, Light waits patiently on his throne, allowing Sasha to make her way up to him at her own leisure. After all, this entire party was arranged just for her. Michael informs Sasha that they've fallen into a teleportation trap, sent to another location with no sign of the others. Although Sasha asks if they're still in the tower, Michael admits he can't be sure, knowing only that the one clear path is upwards. As he urges her to follow him up the stairs, Light waits patiently above, pleased to see his plan unfolding perfectly and telling her to wait just a little longer because his grand gala of vengeance is about to begin. Elsewhere, Nia and Kia find themselves together, completely disoriented and wondering if they're on the tower's first floor after being caught in the same trap. But they know their first priority is to regroup. Before they can move, Ice Kid and Mara emerge from the shadows and calmly approach. Mara laughs at the sight of them, calling them two sweet little snacks and saying this won't be much of a fight, wanting to handle it alone, but Ice Kid reminds her of her manners, saying it's rude to hoard all the prey. The boys stare in disbelief, asking if they were really just called prey, and Nia demands to know who they are. Mara coolly responds that they are their opponents, more or less, clarifying that the elves aren't nearly strong enough to pose a real threat. However, Ice Kid chides her for the overconfidence, warning that a cornered rat will bite the cat, and that even second-rate elves can cause trouble if underestimated. Clearly offended, the boys furiously draw their swords and charge, but Ice Kid and Mara simply sidestep the attack. Kia shouts that they are powerful submasters and members of the elite White Knights as they begin to leap at incredible speeds, trying to overwhelm the women. He calls them fools for thinking elves like them are second-rate and tells Nia to put them in their place. Nia agrees, and they clash swords with the girls before continuing their high-speed assault. Amused, Mara smiles and remarks that they're more like flying squirrels than rats. Still dangerously confident, Kia suggests they start by cutting off a few limbs, and Nia eagerly agrees, vowing to turn the girls into their personal playthings and torture them, just like they do with their human slaves. In another scene, a crestfallen Garrett stands completely alone, disappointed in himself and wondering how he failed to see the trap coming. More annoyed than worried by the teleportation trap, Garrett knows his captain will have his head for it later, so wasting no time, he turns and calls for whoever is hiding to show themselves and tell him what floor they're on. Yuzu silently emerges from the shadows, and though she says nothing, Garrett is immediately captivated by her appearance. Though it startles him, Garrett tries to play the gentleman, asking for her name and declaring himself to be her knight in shining armor. He's confused when Yuzu remains silent, but Luke, her weapon, intervenes, clarifying that his partner doesn't speak. Garrett is visibly stunned by the talking weapon, realizing she wields an intelligent firearm. Luke formally introduces them, adding that Garrett needn't bother remembering their names since they're about to tear him to shreds. Garrett just sighs in annoyance, lamenting that he not only fell for a stupid trap but now has to fight a cutie like her. Completely ignoring the threat, he smiles and tells Yuzu she's completely stolen his heart, even suggesting they put the fight on hold for other activities. However, Yuzu is utterly disgusted, and Luke informs him that she says he isn't her type, and that his very presence is making her nauseous. Unfazed, Garrett asks what her type is, vowing to become the man of her dreams. Luke explains that Yuzu's type is short, has black hair, and a face that matches a kind and brave personality, obviously describing light. Luke then quips that this ship won't be sailing, prompting a violent Yuzu to start smashing him against a wall as he complains she's going to bend his barrel. Sighing in defeat, Garrett laments that he really wished she would have fallen for his charms and chosen love over war. But since that's not an option, he'll have to take her by force. He uses an attack called Invisible Crossbow, firing an unseen bolt at her, but Yuzu effortlessly blocks it and counters with a blast from Luke. Garrett quickly parries the bullet, completely shocked that she could stop his invisible bolt and instantly retaliate. This only makes Garrett like her more, and Luke admits that not just anyone can counter one of Yuzu's shots like that. As Garrett prepares for more fun, we see Nia and Kia are still just leaping around, flying back and forth as if it's the only thing they know how to do. Mara once again calls them squirrels, but the boys don't take it seriously, boasting that the pillars give them the advantage, and that they'll show them what they're made of. While jumping, Nia and Kia create 2 magic circles and use a spell called Wind Slicer against them. Ice Kid and Mara swiftly dodge the attack, with Ice Kid noting they can cast chantless spells while moving at lightning speed. Mara seems unimpressed, saying that's pretty standard for elves, but as she says this, the boys appear behind her and use Wind Slicer again. The girls have to dodge once more, and Mara admits these squirrels do have some bite to them. Ice Kid tells her to keep her guard up as the boys mock them, claiming they're just getting warmed up and still have the upper hand. Meanwhile, Light's double saves a human from a monster outside the tower, with Nemo and Gold backing him up as they try to fight it. Nemo tells Gold to stay out of the way, but he reminds her that this is all a show, so she needs to stick to what they rehearsed. Nemo quickly composes herself, and Gold introduces their group as the Black Hodgepodge, here to save the day. Right after their introduction, the monster flees, and the two give chase, yelling that running is for cowards. The real Light observes from the tower, and asks Eli if he told them to do that. Eli tries to maintain his composure, saying he can only assume they came up with that ridiculous introduction themselves, and there's nothing they can do about it. Back with the boys, they continue to use Wind Slicer repeatedly from different directions, their speed enhanced by the pillars. The girls just keep dodging, and Mara wonders if this is their only move. Ice Kid doubts they can keep this pace up for long, but Kia smirks confidently, clarifying they can go for hours without breaking a sweat. Nia agrees, adding they can do much worse, then uses a Wind Slicer spell that scatters all over the place, leaving them with no escape. Somehow, Ice Kid manages to dodge the countless attacks and tells Mara they have to give them some credit for this, and Mara agrees that it's getting quite intense. Just as she says that, Kia stabs her with a knife while Nia slices off her arm with his sword. He laughs and tells Nia her right arm was the first to go, and Nia replies they should go for the other girl's legs next. After a few seconds, Mara simply picks up her severed arm and gets back on her feet, asking Ice Kid for her assessment. Ice Kid states that the boys' power level is now quite clear, and it's not what she expected. After all, they're the most pathetic group of wimps she has ever seen. The boys are immediately offended, with Kia demanding if she's joking while Nia reminds them they can't even land a hit. Mara interrupts, telling them to take a good look at their swords and pointing out that there isn't a single drop of blood. She clarifies that the knife never stabbed her and he never cut off her arm, she made it look that way herself. Mara then swallows her own right arm right in front of them, and a new one grows back in its place within a second. The boys are frozen in absolute terror at the grotesque display, but Mara just laughs, saying they haven't seen the best part yet. She then grabs both sides of her head and rips it clean off her body with total ease. As the boys stare, paralyzed with horror, Mera laughs and tosses her head into the air, juggling it for a moment. She explains that her body is an amalgam of several different creatures, so she can even juggle her own head if she wants. With both Nia and Kia petrified with fear, Mera decides to introduce herself properly as Mera the Chimera, a level 7777 ultra-rare card. Ice Kid follows suit, introducing herself as another ultra-rare card, Ice Kid the Frozen Firestorm Brawler, also level 7777. The boys obviously don't believe it, calling the level utterly ridiculous and insisting they won't fall for it since all the girls have been doing is running away. Ice Kid complains to Mera that her terrible acting made the whole thing unnecessarily stressful, and she was worried it would give them away. Mera just laughs, but the boys immediately charge at them again with Wind Slicer. This time, however, the girls don't even bother to dodge, and Mera taunts that her performance completely fooled them. Seeing their Wind Slicer do nothing, the boys decide to attack with their swords instead, for some reason thinking that will be a better idea. Once again, the girls stand their ground as Ice Kid tells them to wake up and Mera mentions that their attacks aren't even worth blocking. Completely terrified, Nia and Kia run for their lives, prompting Mera to prepare for her next move, readying Ice Kid's powerful Ifrit right fist. Meanwhile, Yuzu is on the run as Garrett continues to fire his invisible bolts at her, taunting her to fight back before he takes her down. Luke makes sure to warn Yuzu about every incoming attack, allowing her to dodge, but it's clear she's being cornered. Garrett smirks, telling her he's gotten her a gift and hopes she likes barrages. After unleashing his attack, Garrett admits he might have overdone it, but then realizes Yuzu is still standing, completely unharmed. As she simply dusts herself off, Garrett is stunned that she survived. Yet now he's even more smitten. Not only is Yuzu beautiful, but she's also formidable, which means he absolutely needs her as his girlfriend. Garrett then mentions Light's name, knowing he's the one Yuzu is pining for, and tells her she should forget about that loser and let him show her the world. Luke immediately panics, knowing what's coming, and warns Garrett he's just jumped off a cliff. For the very first time, Yuzu speaks, and it's only to declare his death sentence. At the same time, Nia and Kia slam into a wall, and Kia suggests they run along it until they find an exit, but Nia stops, saying something feels off. Just then, an intense wave of heat hits them, and they realize the entire floor is turning into a sweatbox. The room gets hotter by the second, and Kia exclaims they'll be burned alive at this rate. They decide to put up defenses and instantly erect a massive ice wall, but it begins to melt just as quickly. Wasting no time, they create another ice wall, desperately trying to save themselves, but the ice vanishes in an instant as Ice Kid only increases the intensity, completely incinerating them. Meanwhile, Yuzu keeps repeating the same word over and over as she fires into the air, creating a massive cloud of bullets. Garrett watches with a horrified expression, knowing something like this is impossible to dodge. Luke grows worried and tries to tell her to calm down, but Yuzu is beyond reason. Without hesitation, she unleashes a volley of bullets, forcing Garrett to flee in a panic. Knowing it's time to go all out, he casts a spell called Showerment, which blows the incoming bullets away. Despite his efforts, one bullet hits his shoulder, and for some reason, a wave of pain shoots through his entire body. He quickly realizes her bullets can inflict status ailments, but it's too late to react as a second bullet hits him, causing confusion. Garrett's body is then riddled from multiple directions, suffering from countless status effects. Meanwhile, Ice Kid nervously approaches the Scorched Elves, but Mera reassures her, saying they're alive, more or less, thanks to Eli's enchantment, otherwise, they'd be a pile of ash. Still, Ice Kid complains, unable to believe they dropped like flies the second she got serious. Clearly unhappy that it wasn't a real test of her strength. Mera clarifies that it served its purpose, asking her to imagine what would have happened if they had attacked the surface without knowing how they measured up. As they talk, one of the elves weakly cries for help, but Mera tells them this is where the real suffering begins, and that they will be reduced to nothing. She grabs them by the feet and hoists them into the air. The elves beg for mercy, but Mera asks them what they did to all the humans who pleaded for their lives, assuming they ignored them and just killed them for fun, so perhaps that's what she'll do right now. They try to apologize, but Mera cuts them off and forces them to swallow snakes. She explains that their dear master gave them very specific orders. to interrogate them for information while inflicting enough pain and anguish to make them bitterly regret every horrible thing they've ever done. As she speaks, the elves' bodies are completely engulfed by snakes, subjecting them to gruesome torture. Nia and Kia aren't the only ones suffering, as Garrett is already on the ground, riddled with bullets. Completely paralyzed and in agony, he too begs for help, but Yuzu is nowhere near finished with him. Still repeating the same word, she violently and mercilessly stomps on his head, even as Luke tries to beg her to stop, reminding her they aren't supposed to kill him. Yuzu ignores him and only stops when Luke tells her she's flashing her crotch at Garrett, which makes her immediately jump back in embarrassment. Luke scolds her for taking him out of the fight before they even had a chance to fully test their powers. Yuzu panics, realizing she completely forgot Light's orders, and tries to check on Garrett to see if he can get up. Luke tells her to give up, saying Garrett is too broken to fight now, even if he's still alive. Overwhelmed by her blunder, Yuzu starts to cry, so Luke tries to comfort her, saying Light won't be angry with her for this. Meanwhile, Light watches the whole scene with a smile, assuming the fight is over. He wonders how Sasha is doing, and Eli asks if he wants him to show her. Light declines the offer, preferring to savor the moment he sees her in person when he opens the door. As he speaks, Sasha and Michael continue their climb, with Michael mentioning he has a feeling they're being guided along this path. Sasha only wonders when Light will finally appear, clearly eager to kill him once and for all. Elsewhere, in the tower, alone Must realizes they were teleported by magic. Suddenly, Jack appears, confirming his suspicions. Must remarks that it's rude to keep a guest waiting, and Jack apologizes, adding that the good news is they are the only ones attending this meeting. He then introduces himself as the ultra-rare card, Jack the Iron-Blooded Barrigator, level 7777. Must simply scoffs in his face, asking if he really expects him to believe that. Jack tells him to believe what he wants, because all that matters is that they're going to fight, and the last one standing wins. He clarifies that picking on the weak isn't his style, so he'd prefer it if Must just threw in the towel now. Must doesn't take him seriously, calling the level 7777 claim completely detached from reality. Even if Jack looks jacked. Jack informs him he's not the type to lie and tells him to just use appraisal and see for himself. When Must remains silent, Jack asks if he doesn't have the skill, which clearly hits a nerve. Must gets defensive, saying he doesn't need a skill like that because defeating them is much faster. Jack prepares to fight, saying he's willing to let his fists do the talking as Musty immediately lunges at him, but Jack effortlessly parries his weapon aside, telling him he's too slow. Enraged in mere seconds, Musty attacks furiously again and again, wondering how Jack is deflecting all his strikes as if they were nothing. Since he's using his full strength power, that's enough to give even the captain of the White Knights trouble. Musty tries an even more powerful attack, but Jack sends him flying with a simple flick of his fingers. He gets back up, declaring that he has a duty to the Elven Kingdom and refuses to die here. But Jack recalls hearing about their twisted idea of helping people. Since they consider humans powerless and miserable, they save them by exterminating them like insects. Must confirms this, saying humans are so weak, pathetic, and ugly that a quick death at their hands is the pinnacle of happiness. Not understanding this logic at all, Jack watches as Must ends the conversation and brandishes his weapon, the strong-arm halberd, sacrificing a piece of his own life to gain the power to win. Despite this desperate power-up, Musty is left frozen when Jack stops his ultimate attack with a single hand. Reminding him why he's called the Iron-Blooded Barricade, Jack's entire body becomes covered in unbreakable armor, and he boasts that he's now harder than diamonds. Musty screams in a final rage, but his weapon shatters instantly upon contact. With that, Jack ends the fight, delivering a skull-crushing blow that takes Musty out in seconds. Picking him up, Jack confirms Eli's magic worked since he's still alive and wonders if the others have finished their fights too. Right on cue, we cut to another scene where Hardy is about to face May the Executioner, the strongest of them all. Hardy immediately understands that Nasuna has come to challenge him, the strongest of the elves, and she excitedly explains that her master wants to see how she stacks up against other warriors. With a single glance, Hardy can tell she's a seasoned fighter despite her youthful appearance, which can only mean her master is even more powerful. Still, that hardly matters to him, as the pinnacle of power. He's confident that no one can possibly defeat him. Hardy unsheathes his sword and gives her a thorough analysis, noting that every single piece of her equipment, from her sword to her armor, is imbued with an immense amount of magical power. As Nasuna swings her massive blade, clearly eager to fight, Hardy knows the way she effortlessly wields it suggests she possesses near superhuman strength. So he decides to test that theory first. Nasuna, seeing him just standing there silently like a creep, warns him that if he doesn't make a move, she will. Without giving him a moment to react, she unleashes a devastating slash. Hardy is frozen in shock as the attack cleaves right through his sword and shoulder, obliterating a section of the tower wall behind him in the process. He collapses instantly, leaving Nasuna utterly bewildered, to the point where she even walks over and pokes his body with her sword to see if he's still alive. When he doesn't move, she instantly starts to panic, just as Eli contacts her from the throne room, scolding her for destroying an entire wall. Nasuna nervously tries to deny it, but Eli reminds her that she was perfectly clear about the tower's importance and its direct link to her mana reserves. She had even specially designed and reinforced the 4th floor for Nasuna with extra strength enchantments, but apparently, even that wasn't enough to handle her raw power. Nasuna's eyes well up with tears, whining that Eli doesn't have to yell, but Eli retorts that she now has to spend a ridiculous amount of mana to repair the damage. As the wall is quickly repaired, Nasuna finally understands her mistake and apologizes. Eli calms down slightly, warning her that she must learn to control her strength, otherwise, she's destined to fail, light when it matters most. Having learned her lesson, Nasuna apologizes again, promising to be more careful next time. Hardy immediately understands that Nasuna has come to challenge him, the strongest of the elves, and she excitedly explains that her master wants to see how she stacks up against other warriors. With a single glance, Hardy can tell she's a seasoned fighter despite her youthful appearance, which can only mean her master is even more powerful. Still, that hardly matters to him, as the pinnacle of power. He's confident that no one can possibly defeat him. Hardy unsheathes his sword and gives her a thorough analysis, noting that every single piece of her equipment, from her sword to her armor, is imbued with an immense amount of magical power. As Nasuna swings her massive blade, clearly eager to fight, Hardy knows the way she effortlessly wields it suggests she possesses near superhuman strength. So he decides to test that theory first. Nasuna, seeing him just standing there silently like a creep, warns him that if he doesn't make a move, she will. Without giving him a moment to react, she unleashes a devastating slash. Hardy is frozen in shock as the attack cleaves right through his sword and shoulder, obliterating a section of the tower wall behind him in the process. He collapses instantly, leaving Nasuna utterly bewildered, to the point where she even walks over and pokes his body with her sword to see if he's still alive. When he doesn't move, she instantly starts to panic, just as Eli contacts her from the throne room, scolding her for destroying an entire wall. Nasuna nervously tries to deny it, but Eli reminds her that she was perfectly clear about the tower's importance and its direct link to her mana reserves. She had even specially designed and reinforced the 4th floor for Nasuna with extra strength enchantments, but apparently, even that wasn't enough to handle her raw power. Nasuna's eyes well up with tears, whining that Eli doesn't have to yell, but Eli retorts that she now has to spend a ridiculous amount of mana to repair the damage. As the wall is quickly repaired, Nasuna finally understands her mistake and apologizes. Eli calms down slightly, warning her that she must learn to control her strength, otherwise, she's destined to fail, light when it matters most. Having learned her lesson, Nasuna apologizes again, promising to be more careful next time. Nasuna is just happy she managed not to break the wall this time, clarifying that her earlier hesitation was simply her trying to control her immense strength, proudly declaring she can hold back as long as she doesn't use her sword. However, Eli is anything but pleased, and when Nasuna nervously points out the wall is intact, Eli explains that when she said not to break anything, she meant not to cause any damage that requires a massive and wasteful drain on her mana to repair. This sends Nasuna into tears again, and during her tantrum, she calls Eli a harpy, a word she apparently picked up from the gossiping fairy servants, much to Eli's exasperation. Once the wall is finally repaired and Hardy slumps to the floor, Eli orders Nasuna to pick up that piece of trash behind her and return. She then apologizes to Light for the commotion, explaining she was only trying to teach Nasuna the importance of control, but Light brushes it off, his concern focused entirely on her well-being, knowing how much mana the repairs must have cost. Eli reassures him that the sudden mana drop only left her a little weak in the knees. Just then, Yuki announces that it's almost time, prompting Light to tell everyone to be on their best behavior as he dons his mask in anticipation of his guests. Right on cue, the main course of the evening, Michael and Sasha arrive at the door, which swings open on its own as if expecting them. Light offers a gracious welcome, and while Michael assumes he's the master of the tower, Sasha is shocked to recognize the human before her as the boy with the burn scars. Her shock deepens when Light addresses her by name, remarking that it's been a while. When Michael asks if she knows him, a flustered Sasha denies it, claiming she'd only seen him around town once. Visibly disgusted, she demands that Light stop acting so familiar and asks how he even knows her name. Light simply chuckles, telling her that her words cut deep, because not only are they old friends, but she used to absolutely adore and dote on him. Sasha scoffs indignantly, questioning why she would ever dote on a disgusting human, but her protests die on her lips as Light removes his mask, calmly suggesting that this might just jog her memory. Sasha begins to tremble, utterly speechless as her expression shifts to one of pure, unadulterated horror as the realization of who he truly is crashes down on her. He tells her it's been 3 long years, but a disbelieving Sasha can only stammer, asking what happened to the horrific burns on his face and how he hasn't aged a single day. Light chillingly explains that the burns were merely an illusion, and that he has purposefully halted his own aging to keep the memory and the pain of his betrayal eternally fresh. While Sasha struggles to process this, Michael quickly puts the pieces together, realizing this is none other than the master candidate she claimed to have killed all those years ago. Before Sasha can respond, Light lays out his story. How he was thrown into a teleportation trap, sent to the bottom of the abyss, and how he clawed his way back, driven by a singular purpose to exact his revenge and uncover the truth behind why he was targeted. He gestures to Eli and Yuki, crediting them as part of the reason he survived his ordeal, before turning his cold gaze back to Sasha, informing her that she is the next target on his list, that this entire grand stage was set up just for her, and tauntingly asks if she's enjoying the show. While Sasha can only stare in abject terror, Michael erupts into maniacal laughter, declaring that she is a goddess, blessed by fortune. He explains, this isn't a disaster, but a golden opportunity. They've just cornered the very human who attacked the kingdom with a dragon. By killing him and seizing the magic of his tower, they'll skyrocket to the highest echelons of power in the royal court. When Sasha panics that everyone will discover her lie, Michael dismisses it as a trivial detail they can simply keep to themselves. All that matters is completing their mission. His words are enough to steady Sasha's nerves, her initial terror replaced by a renewed, arrogant confidence. She sneers at Light, telling him she's had enough of his theatrics and asking if a piece of vermin like him truly believes he has any right to revenge, telling him not to make her laugh. You'll regret your own stupidity in the fires of hell. Sasha declares, but Light calmly rises, grabs his staff, and instructs Eli and Yuki not to interfere, no matter what happens, quipping about how his level 9,999 stats make the outcome a foregone conclusion. The girls obey, and Light slowly advances on Sasha and Michael, declaring it's time to give them their wedding gift, the ice-cold dish of revenge they so richly deserve. Sasha merely scoffs, boasting that she's already surpassed level 500, and that humans are losers who never amount to anything, before revealing a special item, an ocarina. Light watches with mild curiosity as she begins to play, summoning 2 powerful-looking angels from magical circles on the floor. She explains that it's a phantom-class weapon of the elven nobility, the angelic ocarina, and smugly announces they will annihilate him with their bonds of love. The first angel attacks, and Light easily dodges, noting that it must be fairly strong to crack the tower's floor, but still nowhere near enough to defeat him. His counterattack is immediately blocked by the second angel's sacred shield. When the angel manages to withstand his initial assault, Light decides to ramp it up, effortlessly shattering both the shield and the angel's arms. He thought that would be enough to wipe them both out, but the third angel promptly casts a healing spell, fully restoring its companion. Light quickly sizes up the situation, an attacker, a tank, and a healer, a complete party composition straight out of an Overwatch lobby, which only makes things more interesting for him. Sasha is in complete disbelief, unable to comprehend how Light could possibly be this strong, insisting he's nothing more than a level 15 human. Light casually replies that he forgot to mention he's done a little training to get stronger before revealing his true level. 9,999. Sasha is utterly horrified, but Michael calmly tells her not to fall for his cheap tricks, assuring her that reaching level 9999 is patently impossible and that Light's power must come from some hidden magic item. His words are enough to steady her once again, and she decides to trust him. With renewed confidence, Sasha commands her angelic knights to attack once more. Light simply tells them to behold this as he unleashes a flurry of spell cards. Dust Press, Shadow Dance, and Fire Squad. In quick succession, he disorients the angels with dust, ensnares them with shadows, and then incinerates them with potent flames, following up with an ice edge and fire arrow for good measure. But just as his attacks are about to connect, Sasha plays her ocarina again, completely nullifying all the damage. She laughs in his face, gloating that the angelic ocarina can summon the knights an infinite number of times without consuming any of her mana. Admitting the ocarina is more annoying than he anticipated, Light decides to go for the summoner directly, instantly teleporting right in front of Sasha. He swings his staff, but before it can land, Michael leaps in, blocking the attack with his shield and warning Light to stay away from his fiancée. Impressed that the shield could block his attack, Light's momentary surprise turns into shock as the shield begins to glow, unleashing a blast of energy that sends him flying across the room. As Eli and Yuki cry out in concern, a baffled Light wonders what just happened, knowing it wasn't a spell. Michael laughs, revealing another elven noble treasure. The Shield of Blessing and Retribution, which absorbs and reflects any attack from those foolish enough to challenge the gods. To make matters worse, it also drastically boosts the stats of its wielder and their allies. As he speaks, the angelic knights break free from their bonds, and Sasha taunts Light, declaring that with Michael protecting her, she can summon them over and over again, leaving him powerless. Michael agrees, stating the battle was over before it even began. Sasha cruelly mocks Light, comparing him to a helpless little insect and asking how it feels to be so utterly frustrated. To her surprise, Light simply begins to laugh uncontrollably. Michael dismisses it as the predictable breakdown of a human facing overwhelming despair. But Light, after thanking them for the good laugh, promises to return the favor by showing them what true despair looks like. Recognizing the terrifying shift in his demeanor, Eli and Yuki frantically try to stop him, but their pleas fall on deaf ears as Light begins to chant, initiating the primary soul seal cancellation. As the primary soul seal cancellation is initiated, chains erupt from 3 portals around Light, but using the code 9999, he shatters them instantly, unleashing an even larger magic circle from which he activates an extra rare card, Goddess Queen Gimel. His mask instantly morphs into a new, terrifying form, radiating a dark and overwhelming aura as he simply tells his guests to sit back and enjoy the show, as they're about to be served the full-course menu of despair. As he slowly advances, Sasha is frozen solid with fear, prompting Michael to scream at her to make the angels attack. Snapping out of it, she orders her knights to dispose of the monstrosity, but when the lead angel charges, Light doesn't even bother to move as its weapon shatters into pieces the moment it touches his staff. At this, the angels begin to pray for protection, and Light scoffs that even angels can beg out of fear. When the tank angel deploys its sacred shield again, aboard Light shatters it with a single tap, completely vaporizing all 3 knights in the process, before mockingly apologizing for not giving them enough time to feel true despair. While Sasha is still reeling, Michael realizes the staff is the source of his power and tells her to focus on destroying it. She quickly obeys, playing the ocarina as Light taunts them, saying he'd hate for the fun to end so soon, but as he speaks, he winces in pain, realizing the staff is burning through his own defenses. He knows he can't maintain this form for long. And yet, Light smiles, deciding it's a worthy price. He'll gladly sacrifice a hand, or even an entire arm, if it means inflicting the ultimate misery upon Sasha. As she finishes playing, she summons an archangel, a fusion of all 3 knights, and orders it to unleash its most powerful attack, Holy Javelin. Sasha proudly bids Light farewell, but her expression turns to utter disbelief when the mighty blast is erased with a single, casual touch from Light's staff. He smiles, asking if she really thought she could kill him with a cheap trick like that. Sasha's face drains of all color as she frantically orders the Archangel to fire again at maximum power, but the result is exactly the same. Light continues his slow, deliberate walk towards them, contemptuously brushing away the angel's fallen feathers as if they were dust and asking if they're finished yet. Realizing nothing is working, Sasha finally breaks, panicking and screaming at him to stay away, calling him a monster. She tries to mount a desperate defense, but Light simply laughs in her face, taunting her to try harder and warning that she'd better stop him before he rips her guts out.
Michael desperately begs Sasha to use the Karina again, and she doesn't hesitate to comply. However, this time she cannot even summon the Angel Knights, and the Karina in her hands simply turns to ash. Light comments on how amusing he finds this because all he did was release a little power from his spear and it erased the Karina from existence, meaning she can no longer summon angels at all. Michael asks what this is supposed to mean, as nothing should be capable of destroying a mere Phantom-class weapon. Light informs him that his weapon is a Genesis-class spear, capable of slaying the divine, the god Requiem Gunner, stressing that their insignificant Phantom-class weapon cannot even compare to his. Once out of his shock, Michael simply laughs, telling him he's just spouting nonsense now, first claiming to be level 9999 and now saying he possesses Genesis-class armament. Michael dismisses this as nothing more than a stupid joke, and Sasha agrees, saying it was just dumb luck that the angelic ocarina broke, so he shouldn't think too highly of himself. Michael reminds him that his shield of blessing and retribution will receive anything thrown at it and return it, so there was never a chance he would win this fight. Light smiles and decides to put that to the test, wanting to see how he stops his next attack. Without hesitation, he slams Michael's shield with his Genesis-class spear, demanding he show him what makes the elves so superior. In a matter of seconds, Michael's shield of blessing and retribution shatters completely, leaving them exposed. Light steps back to look down on them, and Michael can only wonder how a human like him can even exist. He is too powerful, so he cannot imagine him being anything other than a master. Light reminds him that they were the ones who started using that label first, so he is the one who wants to know what he is supposed to be if he's a master. Michael tells him that whatever the case, he represents too great a threat to be allowed to live. After ensuring Sasha is all right, Michael clarifies that he hates to give the impression that they are running away, but the fact is that they must report his existence to the kingdom, which is why he can consider himself safe for now, until they can finish this at another time and place. Without waiting for a response, Michael pulls out a feather to cast a Celestial Runner's Wings, a spell meant to allow them to escape via teleportation. However, after several seconds, the spell fails. His spell fails to activate for some reason, leaving him confused. Michael tries a couple more times, but absolutely nothing happens, and Light explains that it's useless because they're trapped, informing them that teleportation doesn't work in this tower, having been blocked with an enchantment. Michael demands he stop being absurd because enchantments that prevent teleportation simply don't exist. Ellie decides to intervene, saying that technically Michael is correct. The interference spell she cast over this tower to prevent teleportation is one of her own original creations. Comprehending the inner workings of the Abyss dungeon core was a daunting task, but she managed to replicate its functions with her magic. Michael cannot believe such a thing is possible, but still says that hope isn't lost because the White Knights will surely come to their aid. Furthermore, Captain Hardy alone is well over level 3000, so he can finish them off in the blink of an eye. Light simply laughs at this and tells the others they can enter now. As the doors open, Nizuna, Ice Cream, Mara, Susu, and Jack walk into the room, dragging the bodies of the defeated White Knights. Michael is frozen with dread as he sees the body of Hardy, along with Mustay, Sharja, and even Nia and Kia. Light praises them for their good work, but everyone grows concerned when they see his hand holding the spear. Ellie and Ayuki are equally worried, but Light tells them not to worry and refocuses his attention on Michael and Sasha. Sensing no escape, Michael resorts to a desperate approach, telling Light that he has a proposition for him. Sasha looks at him in confusion, but Michael completely ignores her and asks Light to join forces with him to take control of the Elven Kingdom, assuring him it will be an easy task given his extraordinary abilities and his aptitude for politics. Light looks at him with disdain, asking if he truly believes he would be interested in something like that, stating he already has what he wants and is only there for revenge and to uncover the truth. Michael then begs him to let him leave because he was never part of the group that tried to kill him, nor does he know why they received that order. Sasha looks at him in horror and asks if he's really going to leave her to die after saying he would protect her. Michael silences her with an insult, telling her not to drag him into something that is her fault. His facade finally collapses, and he tells her that he was never happy with their engagement because she's nothing but a dirty commoner with idiotic dreams of grandeur. Sasha soon starts crying, telling him how cruel he is because he told her that he loved her and she believed him. Michael tells her that's her own fault since he was obviously lying, so he doesn't care if she thinks he's a traitor. Completely ignoring Sasha's cries, Michael asks Light if he should kill her for him. Light doesn't seem interested in him at all, so he clarifies that he doesn't plan on laying a finger on him. Instead, he calls on Eli and she walks over, delighted to approach Michael, saying she has been waiting for so long and her blood has been boiling with rage. It took every ounce of self-control she had to avoid disobeying orders and launching into a massacre. With a disturbing expression, she warns him that his death will be quite long and painful. Michael panics and begs for mercy as he now realizes how glorious and powerful Light truly is. Eli's expression instantly softens, so Michael continues, saying that Light is like a god and his transcendental strength and magnanimous spirit are proof that he is a supreme king, which is why he practically venerates him now. Eli smiles, saying it seems he has finally recognized the greatness of the blessed Lord Light. However, empty words are not enough. He needs to learn proper respect, so she is going to engrave it into every fiber of his being, literally. Michael goes into complete panic and runs, so Eli uses a spell called Dormifasol, trapping him in thorn-filled vines. He screams in pain, and Eli explains that Dormifasol is a strategic class spell. It is powerful enough to immobilize even someone of his caliber for a short period of time, meaning it's impossible for him to break free. Michael manages to speak, saying the idea of casting a strategic class spell without incantation is absurd. Eli mentions that apparently he still can't accept reality, so she will simply start by taking a peek inside his thick head. Michael tries to beg her to stop, but Eli tells him he committed a mortal sin when he insulted Light, so now he will repent while suffering an infernal misery. Michael desperately trembles, asking her to forgive him, but Eli ignores him and begins her torture. Sasha can only hear his agonizing screams, and Light tells her that it is now her turn. She looks around and sees the bodies of the White Knights, which makes her realize that there truly is no escape. That is why Sasha resorts to one last desperate attempt, nervously pleading with Light. She begs him to remember the old times, which is the worst idea in the world because for Light, the old times are the memory of her betraying him. Sasha reminds him of all the times he cried alone and she would go to comfort him, holding him tight and wiping his tears. She also mentions the time she stood up for him when Gara and the others bullied him and everything else she did for him. Light clarifies that he does remember all of that, but none of it was real, and she made it clear to him that she was faking it the whole time. The truth is, she considered him inferior and enjoyed his suffering. When she tried to kill him, he heard enough from her voice and saw the joy on her face at the idea of murdering a human. It is something he will never be able to forget, and that has been burned into his memory, along with all the pain they caused him. Sasha desperately tells him he should blame Drago for it, that she couldn't do anything against someone like him, so it was out of her control. Sasha insists it wasn't her fault, and then reminds him that he was in love with her. She brazenly lies to his face again, telling Light that she actually had feelings for him too, so she would be happy to be with him whenever he wanted if he spared her life and killed the others. Her words are cut short when Hayuki suddenly appears in front of her, completely enraged. Ayuki tells her she can't believe she not only refuses to admit her mistake, but also tries to sell fake love to her master, thinking he is a naive fool she can win over with something like that. Ayuki threatens her, saying she will let her beasts eat her alive, then revive her corpse and fully heal her so she can repeat it again and again. Light intervenes and asks her to behave, so Ayuki immediately steps back, following his orders. Light tells Sasha she can relax for now because he is not going to kill her right now. After all, he first needs to uncover the whole truth and decide how best to use her powers, and until that happens, he will keep her alive while she suffers the worst imaginable pain. Sasha starts crying, looking at him in horror, but Light simply smiles and tells her she can accompany Garu in the darkness of the abyss. As he walks away, Sasha tries to stop him and begs him to spare her life. Light stops for a moment to look at her, saying there is something he forgot to do.
He suddenly shoots an arrow into her leg, making her scream in pain, and tells her she can recover it. Light then asks Mara to take care of the rest, and she gladly swallows Sasha whole, along with all of her monsters.
And bugs. Sasha screams desperately, telling Light that she just wanted to find her own happiness, and there is nothing wrong with that. Light simply walks away and acknowledges that he said he was ready to sacrifice an arm or two, but it is clear the Genesis-class spear has taken its toll. Everyone is alarmed when he suddenly collapses, and Light uses the remaining strength he has to reset the Soul Seal, using the code 9999. The God Requiem Gunner is sealed again, but Light remains unconscious, and the girls are clearly worried. After they move him to his room, they wait outside anxiously. Nazuna wonders if he will be all right. Eli doesn't even know what to say because she herself is unsure. They all saw what happened to him. After 3 years of continually spinning his unlimited gacha in the abyss, the only extra rare card he pulled was the God Requiem Gunner. She and May tried to find out more about it, but all they could determine is that it harbors immense power. Because of the danger it posed, Light combined its powers with the level 9,999 souls belonging to her, May, and Ayuki to create a magic seal that kept it safely stored. However, today, he canceled one of those 3 seals to wield it as a weapon, and she has no idea what kind of price that massive amount of power exacted on his body. That is why all they can do right now is hope for the best and believe in Light. After a while, Light finally opens his eyes, and the only person he sees is May, who is overjoyed to see him awake. She even breaks down crying in relief, but tells him to lie still and allow himself to rest a little longer. Light is a bit surprised by how worried she looks, and May decides to be honest with her feelings for a moment. She tells him that when she saw the tears stream from his eyes that first time they met in the abyss, everything clicked for her. She realized how important it was for him to get his revenge, but she still has to ask him to stop being so reckless. After all, there is now a whole kingdom of people behind him, and they are united under his banner and his wishes, and she would like him to allow them to help him. In another scene, we see an elf report to the Chancellor and the Queen of the Elves that all contact with the White Knights who set out for the tower has been lost, so they have no idea what their situation is. Based on what has happened in the past, they can assume the worst, but the Queen refuses to believe it, saying that Hardy is the strongest warrior among all the elves. The elf confirms this, but reminds her that 2 whole days have passed, and that doesn't bode well. Leaf silences him, unwilling to believe it yet, and just then another elf bursts into the room to inform them that dragons are approaching. A massive flock of dragons has flown directly into their territory, probably around 100, with even more on the way. The first wave has just reached the skies over the capital, and they have probably already surrounded the castle. Leaf manages to see the dragons outside through the windows. Just then, Eli sends them a message stating that she is the evil witch of the tower. She tells them that a couple of days ago, a group of intruders broke into her tower. The idiots called themselves the White Knights, so she demands to meet with their commanding officer. Eli decides to show them what will happen if they don't show up, making the dragons set the forest on fire. Seeing the imminent threat, the queen has no choice but to go see her in person, though not without an army of guards following her from behind. She introduces herself as the sovereign of the Elven Kingdom, Queen Leaf VII, and Eli finds her attitude extremely disrespectful and reprehensible. Leaf demands she take her disgusting beasts and leave their territory immediately, but Eli reminds her that it was her people who first broke into her tower uninvited. A bit disconcerted, Leaf decides to ask her what has become of her White Knights. Eli tells her she has no obligation to answer her. Besides, she is the one asking the questions here, and she wants to know for what purpose she sent those miserable thieves to her tower. Leaf is clearly offended by that term, but Eli says she is not mistaken because they were thieves she sent to try and steal her treasures and her knowledge. The queen cannot believe she dares to call her people thieves and considers it utterly outrageous. Eli finds it very difficult to believe, so she tells her that she will have to take a look inside her thick head to find out the truth of the matter. Leaf backs away, clearly intimidated, and the Chancellor orders the guards to protect the queen, but when they try to attack Eli, she uses another spell called Sarsara Arbol, and several roots burst from the ground. The roots quickly grow after binding the guards completely, making them unable to move. She explains that these are blood-sucking trees that feed on their enemies. The more they have, the further they can grow, and this is yet another strategic class spell created by her. Completely horrified, Leif doesn't hesitate to flee, but Eli uses Dormy Fossil again, trapping her just as she did Michael. Eli clarifies that she cannot let her escape, not while her questions have not been answered yet. She decides it's time to take a look inside that head, and before Leif can protest, Eli puts her through the same suffering she inflicted on Michael. Once she finishes, Eli confirms that Leif was not lying, but all the blatant discrimination against humans she saw paraded in her memories has made her quite enraged. That is why she hereby orders her to grant immediate freedom to all humans currently enslaved in this nation, and that she will no longer be allowed to treat humans as slaves. Anyone who tries to protest or interfere with this order will become food for her dragon pets. Eli then demands that absolute autonomy be granted to all humans. Knowing there is no other choice, Leif bows her head, and her crown finally falls. Shortly after, May informs Light that things on the surface are progressing according to his orders, and it has been declared that all humans must enjoy absolute autonomy. As a result, people from various nations across the world have started gathering around the tower, and the Mohawks have been struggling to keep up with all the newcomers. Light decides to go take a look, saying he wants to make an appearance and reassure everyone after what happened. When the girls see him, they are extremely happy to know he is back in action, completely unharmed. The human children they saved are thriving in the village, and Light can see that the population has truly grown tremendously. Eli mentions that approximately 5,000 humans have been freed from slavery, including those from neighboring nations, and they are working to cultivate the area around the tower so they can live self-sufficiently. Seeing all of this, Light tells them he was convinced that if the truth turned out to be wickedly evil, he would turn this world into a burning hell. But now, he feels differently. He wants to protect it instead of destroying it, since the problem is discrimination, not the world itself. After taking his revenge, he wants to make the world a place where everyone can live in peace and happiness. Light asks them if they think he is dreaming too big, but when he turns around, the girls are kneeling before him with devotion, completely ready to follow his command, and he thanks them with a smile. He is still unsure whether he will grant blessings and fortune or simply drown everything in death and despair, but with the help of all his friends, he knows he will undoubtedly find the right path. This concludes the first season of Unlimited Gacha. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe to the channel, comment finale to let us know you stayed until this part of the video, give a like if you enjoyed the revenge, and you can also check out these other videos below.